Ujamaa, Ujamaa, I want to Ujamaa with you. Ujamaa, 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 and I hope you like Ujamaa too. I was told yesterday that I'm starting earlier and earlier. For some reason, I'm not getting good sleep, so it is what it is. You know what I mean? I appreciate everybody showing up, though. Appreciate everybody coming through to read with me. This is a really good book, and I apologize to those who may think I'm being critical of Nyerere. I can't be critical of that man. Okay, that is, like I say, I think he's top 3 of the 20th century. You know, and that's saying a lot because, you know, like most of us were born in the 20th century. You know what I mean? Although technically, you know, you might consider us 21st century, but still, like most of us were born in the 20th century. And then on top of that, there were like billions of us. You know, to be the top 3 of a billion is not a light accolade. This is a great man. Now, no matter how good a man is, that doesn't mean that if you take a snapshot, a day in their lives, that you can't make commentary, you know? And so with regard to Nyerere, you know, this next paper after the Arusha Declaration, this is just a day, an address at a conference in the 17th of October, 1967. You know, it is not him. It's just his words on one day of his life, of his great life, and we're going to just look into that. You know, this is a snapshot of a moment. Bitter Medicine Podcast is here. He says, "What's about to say? They're getting earlier and earlier. How are you all awake though? That's my question. Like I'm like usually, like normally I'd be in bed. I don't know. Like I don't know. I think it's the fan or something. I'm just like waking up. But anyway, let's keep going. So appreciate that. Bitter Medicine's here, and yeah, make sure you guys check him out on Saturday. I'm gonna try to make it just regular Sunday. We only have 2 more chapters of this book, and for those of you who have made it this far, you know, I know you know that I'm not just a straight reader, you know, like straight reading through it. I'm a straight reader though. Anyway, but yeah, let's just jump into it though. Many things have happened since our last meeting, and it is the job of this conference to examine the most important of them in light of the objectives we set ourselves when we adopted the Arusha Declaration. For that declaration was a commitment to the principles of self-reliance and socialism. It did not by itself bring either of these things. Only hard thinking and hard work in the right direction will do that. It is important that we should be very clear about this fact. Okay, you see what I'm saying? I tell you, man, like this guy, he's so smart. He's so intelligent. He's so poignant that I think a lot of people would just, like when he's doing this conference, like would have just overlooked this. Or maybe they heard it, but like, when we're reading it, we might overlook it. Because he's saying, look, hard work and hard thinking do things, not the declaration. So we can write the declaration. We can write, you know, whatever we want. We could write the books. We could write the posters, the flyers. That's not what's going to do anything. What's going to do things is hard thinking and hard work. Okay? So we're just going to go back. We're going to try to appreciate this for what it is. We're going to try to appreciate this for what it is. Let's get it. Many things have happened since our last meeting, and it is the job of this conference to examine the most important of them in light of the objectives we set ourselves when we adopted the Arusha Declaration. For the declaration was a commitment to the principles of self-reliance and socialism. It did not by itself bring either of these things. Only hard thinking and hard work in the right direction will do that. It is important that we should be very clear about this fact. The Arusha Declaration did not cause miracles. It did not make the crops more fruitful, nor the rains more regular. It did not make everyone wealthy, nor change the level of our education. It did not change the habits of the minds we have grown up with, nor create any other miraculous changes in our condition. Our acceptance of the Arusha Declaration was like a young Christian's confirmation. It's a declaration of intent to live a certain kind of life and to act in a certain kind of manner for desired ends. We have no more become a socialist country because of the Arusha Declaration than a young boy becomes a good Christian or a good Muslim by the act of dedication, right? That's it. And then that's the thing. A lot of people tell you they're Christians, Muslims, or they are actually, because if they're bad people after that, they're still bad. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? If you declare yourself going to be a bad person, yeah, I'm taking shots early in the morning. I'm taking shots early in the morning. All right. The sincere act of dedication is important, but much more important are the actions which follow during his life. The question before us, and this is what I'm saying, that sincere act of dedication is important, but much more important are the actions which follow during his life. The question before us, therefore, is whether we have started to make the right decisions and the right plans, and whether we have begun to act in a manner which will in time build socialism and self-reliance in Tanzania. That's the big question. Let me see what the comments are like. Okay. All right. So first, let us look at this question of self-reliance, for I believe that this has been widely misunderstood by ourselves more than by others. Some of our people have spoken and acted as though it meant self-sufficiency in manpower and financial resources. It means nothing of the kind. We would be extremely silly if we imagined that the Arusha Declaration had caused us to have more qualified doctors, engineers, teachers, administrators, and so on, so that the development plan target for self-sufficiency and skilled manpower by 1980 had suddenly become irrelevant. So this is interesting. So he's like, look, self-reliance is not necessarily self-sufficiency, right? And this is the thing that we also have to recognize, is that how many doctors, engineers, teachers, administrators we have is not really is a difficult thing when, like, given the sort of colonization we went through and given the sort of pre-colonial existence we had, so pre-colonial Japan did have doctors, engineers, teachers, and administrators, right? But if we're really paying attention to what Nyerere was saying these last few days, is that pre-colonial Africa, to a big extent, didn't. Okay? Now, so there were a lot of, Western African, mainly, but not just Western African, honestly, but there were a lot of, okay, here's what I would say. Somebody from East Africa told me that Western Africa had the big empires, right? But Eastern Africa really didn't. Now, I don't know if that's the case, but that's something somebody told me. Because I could think of, Great Zimbabwe, but some people will not say that's Eastern Africa. But of course that's also not Western Africa. So I'm of the opinion that there were, and of course there's Swahili Coast. I think the Swahili Coast probably had a lot of teachers, administrators, engineers, so on and so forth, right? But notwithstanding that, there was also, as Nyerere is emphasizing, a lot of rural agricultural villages. And rural agricultural villages do not really make qualified doctors, engineers, teachers, and administrators. Okay? Now, I don't know to what extent they were, neighbors to, prominent, powerful towns. Because the thing is this, even if we had those, right, which is very likely that we did, these Europeans destroyed them. You understand? We like to say that Africa has 3,000 tribes or something. Those are 3,000 surviving tribes. Or 3,000 languages. Those are 3,000 surviving languages. Those are not how many languages and towns we've had. Because and that's just to say that, like again, and that's after. There's so much. What I'm saying is this, that even if you had doctors, engineers, teachers, and administrators, which I'm sure you had all over Africa, right? The people who survived this European invasion were no longer doctors, engineers, teachers, and administrators, for the most part, right? What happened in Japan, however, was that the doctors, engineers, teachers, administrators did survive. And so when the Japanese removed the European invaders, they still had doctors, engineers, teachers, and administrators, right? That's a big difference. You know, when the example that a lot of people know or more familiar with is the Congo, right? So after when Lumumba takes charge, I think there's like three black people or something like that. You know, like three black people who are qualified in a like a graduate level, like a graduate level of education per se, right? Or like you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like maybe like one person's an engineer, of the Western design. You know, obviously the Twa were a very innovative and ingenious people, and so I'd seen a video of them like building a bridge, and it's just like amazing. It's not at all what the engineering we know of in the West is, but it's and so it's like, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a really important difference, because when we're kind of on Africa's ass, you know, we're like, hey, why are they not self-sufficient? And it's like, well, it's really difficult considering who survived. You know what I mean? It's really difficult considering who survived and with what and how. Yeah, it's really difficult. So let's go back to this. We would be extremely silly if we imagine that the Arusha Declaration had caused us to have more qualified doctors and engineers, teachers, administrators, and so on, so that the development plan target of self-sufficiency and skilled manpower by 1980 had suddenly become irrelevant. Self-reliance does not mean that self-reliance does not mean that. Self-reliance is not a silly thing. Let us therefore be very clear. What do we expect now, and what the policy of self-reliance means in the immediate future, and what it does not mean. First, it means that we must make maximum use of the resources which we have. We want citizens to be given priority in every field as soon as they are capable of doing the job efficiently. And certainly we must have Tanzanians making policy. Tanzanians must control our country. But this is not an issue now. We have already achieved that. The question at issue, and see, that's another thing you want to pay attention to. Nyerere is completely convinced that the country is under his control, and you know, we are convinced that it wasn't. Okay, but the difference is that Nyerere was there. He was sitting there. He was so on and so forth. You know, if like we have to come to this reality, like there's the imagination and there's the reality, right? And the reality is that if anybody could judge who was in control of Tanzania at the time of Nyerere, right, it would probably be Nyerere. You know, not so much us 50, 60 years later, you know, saying, you know what, black people can't control anything. You know, black people don't, you know, white supremacy makes sure that black people don't. You know, it kind of reminds me of this quote that was shared on Twitter, right? And then I kind of said something, and then, you know, my good brother Gnostic kind of said something back, and I thought, you know, for a moment I was like, you know what he said makes sense. You know, it's a possibility. It's not realistic, but it's a possibility. But now that I'm looking at Nyerere himself say, nah, you know, we were in control, right? I forgot to put this page up. I forgot to share this page. So, but anyway, now that I'm looking at Nyerere himself say something, I'm just saying to myself, yeah, what does this even mean? You know? So I'm gonna share you guys the screen to show you what I mean. So basically, this person writes down this Amos Wilson quote, right? And the Amos Wilson quote is something along the lines of, the European is only 10% of the world's population. If 10% of the world's population can control the other 90%, then that 90% must be out of their minds, right? And so the idea is that white people as a whole control 100% of the population of the planet, right? So, of course, I say, look, the European population doesn't control the other 90%. At best, the European leaders, which are less than 1%, control the European population, and the African population, another 10%, if including all of them, right? And then I go and say the Asians have greater autonomy and practice self-control to a large degree, right? And he's like, and so this is my brother Gnostic. He's a good brother, right? He says maybe at this time his statement was made, it was valid. Dr. Wilson passed away 30 plus years ago, right? And I'm like, yeah, maybe, but then I don't know if communist China was under white control, but I don't know, right? And so it's like, realistically, a lot of us, educated in the West, kind of think in this line, this paradigm that white people control everybody and everything. And I think we think that because we're in the white man's land, and we see that he controls everything and everything in his land, right? And we kind of just assume because he tells us he's the big bad and he's the baddest motherfucker on the planet, and ain't nobody could talk to him, can't nobody say shit to him, right? But he tells us this, and we, it's kind of like, yeah, we just believe it, right? But then you have honest and real testimony from people on other countries. We have people in other countries who are going to tell you, look, certainly we must have Tanzanians making policies. Tanzanians must control our country. But that is not an issue now. We have already achieved that. So it really comes back to, what are we being propagandized to believe versus what is reality? Because when we're sitting in the West, we're being told that we're helpless around the world, and therefore, why even bother going around the world, because we're helpless around the world. And yet you see people in Africa are saying, look, we're engaging in self-help, but like we're engaging in self-help. It's really a thing, I would say. It's really a thing that we have to come to terms with. That a lot of, and this is why I realize a lot of quote unquote elders and ancestors in America are going to tell you something, and they're going to shut you away from what is in the real world. Because realistically, if, like, here's what I would say, the Amos Wilson quote. If the Amos Wilson quote was something along the lines of, and I'm not saying Nyerere was alive when he was alive, so that could be, that could go along with what, Brother Gnostic was saying, right? I'm not saying that, right? But what this quote could have easily been was, hey, you know what? Europeans are controlling this amount of population, but there are Africans with autonomy and sovereignty, and we should get behind them if we want to experience autonomy and sovereignty, or if we want to expand autonomy and sovereignty. What it changes into is that, hey, you're just out of your mind. That's what it changes into. And then, like I said, I like, one of the issues I had with Amos Wilson and them was, like, I feel like a lot of people who follow them kind of just make fun of black people, because what this right here is kind of just saying that black people are out of their minds. Right now, this is during a time when black people are really realistically struggling with the question of how to keep a nation afloat. But then we're kind of sitting down in America, and a lot of us, inherited this, Amos Wilson paradigm, where we're sitting down in America and we're just making fun of African people. I can tell you guys this, in fact. So one of these brothers used to be in my Discord, and then he started kind of being a little negative. He kind of started being, like, really into ADOS or whatever, right? I told him he had to, like, stay away from, like, negative propaganda for a bit. He took a little break, and so he finally writes me back, and he's like, yeah, like he said he was gonna take a 2-month break. He takes 2 months. I'm like, whatever, right? He writes me back, and he's just more negative than ever. Like, you immigrants, you blah, 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 blah. The way how y'all look at Africa. And it's like, what is this? Like, what is this? Like, what is this? Of course, I still was friendly, because this guy was a good guy. He's a good man at heart. Just like not as good as Nyerere, obviously. But, just like how I look at Nyerere and say, hey, you might have a wrong ideology, but you're still a good man. Like, this was a good man. And, but, like, The name calling, the pointlessness, the pointlessness of the argument. You guys you guys steal our culture, and it's like, what does this have to do with anything? There are people who have sovereignty, who have control of their own countries, and then we're kind of sitting back, whining and complaining and saying that we're the best and we have the best culture and we got to get out of our African minds and shit. And it's just like, ugh, like ugh, it's cringe, but it's like I'm the only person cringing, But anyway, that's a little bit of tangent, too long a tangent. Anyway, first it means that we must make maximum use of the resources which we have. We want citizens to be given priority in every field as soon as they are capable of doing the job efficiently. Let me see what the comments are. Oh, Bobby writes here. He says, greetings, PvP, and greetings, Koku. So we want citizens to be, let me make sure that my screen is up, though. Yeah. Greetings. No, he says, we want citizens to be given priority in every field as soon as they're capable of doing the job efficiently. Now, pay attention to that word, citizens. We want citizens to be capable. So I'm sorry. And certainly we must have Tanzanians making policy. Tanzanians must control our country, but it's not an issue now. We have already achieved that. The question at issue is whether we must at all costs have Tanzanian citizens in every executive position. And the answer we give must be a realistic one if we wish to fulfill our ambition. For the truth is that we do not yet have enough qualified and experienced Tanzanian citizens to do all the jobs which have to be done if the policies we Tanzanians have decided upon are to be implemented. You don't have the engineers to make the dams. Okay? You don't have them. Now you could say go educate them in the West. You could say go educate them in the bushes, right? But you don't have them. However, the engineers that could design a dam are in abundance in the West. And it's just the reality of the situation. I'm not even going to hold y'all. It's just the reality of the situation. Bobby writes, says only it's because of our powerlessness. EL is waving. I feel like it's the same complexion from last week, so he ain't go outside. Is that the darkest complexion? What I do is when I do my emoticons, I always pick the darkest one. One time some woman was like, why are you picking the darkest one when you ain't that dark? But like she was like Nilotic, so she could say that. It's like you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm dark, what are you talking about? She's like, nah, you ain't. And I'm like, what? Let me see if this is the darkest one. Hold on a second. Of course, it wasn't what I wanted to hear. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I always use the darkest one. It's me right now. All right. So what are we talking about? We do all the sort of policies we Tanzanians have decided upon are to be implemented. So the question, therefore, is whether we are prepared to make our plan. Wait. Oh no. So yeah, that's what he said. So what Bobby Wright said is really important, right? He says it's because of our powerlessness. And the thing is that it's not our powerlessness. It's the people in the Americas may be powerless, but the people outside, like basically this guy is telling you he had control. He had the power. He could have influenced the schools. He could have put his curriculum in place. He could have. But instead of us saying, you know what, that's where we should be to, get our plans together, get our act together, we were kind of in the West saying, hey, we're all powerless. Because we can't put a curriculum together, or we can't implement a curriculum, or we can't put these buildings, we can't have a community center, we can't we can't have engineers that work for us. We can't fix our water. Whatever it is that we were saying in the West, the reality is that we could have just left and went with the, there's this brother. Oh, I shouldn't say. Should I say? Yeah, I'll say brother at the time. I'll say brother. Look, this brother named Museveni. Okay, this is brother named Museveni, right? And I'm saying brother now. I don't want to keep distracting this because this one's a large article, but I really want y'all to get what I'm saying at this point. So there's this document I have in the in the Google Drive. So you guys make sure you check out my you check out the Discord, and you join the Discord and whatever, so you could get access to the literature, right? This is brother named Museveni. Now, for those of you who know what that name means, basically he's the current leader of Uganda. Okay, the current leader of Uganda. So there's this. Look at this document right in front of you. There's this document. Let me see. I'm making sure I'm showing it to you guys. Yeah, there's a document called Cheche. Okay, it's the University of Dar es Salaam. There's student writings in the University of Dar es Salaam, 1970. Okay, so this paper was in So the paper we're reading right now is in 1967. The one from Nyerere is in 1967, where Nyerere is talking all this junk, like not this junk, but he's 1962. He does the Arusha Declaration. 1967, he does the follow-up to the Arusha Declaration. Okay, this is the follow-up to the Arusha Declaration. All right, so that's the timeline. So 3 years after this, you have a student. Okay, you have a student in a school named Museveni. You follow me? Basically, now where's Museveni from? To the student in the school is in Dar es Salaam. He's in Tanzania. Okay, but where's Museveni from? Okay, Museveni's from Uganda. All right, Museveni becomes the leader of Uganda. All right, but he says, look, I am going to uproot my whole life. I'm going to uproot my whole life in order to, he's like, my 3 years in Tanzania. So basically, during this address, in fact, I shouldn't even say that. Let's be freaking honest. Hold on a second. Let's just do the freaking research. Look at this right here. Because it's almost ridiculous. What I'm going to say is this. If I remember correctly, he does this declaration at the, okay, no, never mind. I thought he was doing it at Dar es Salaam. But he's not doing it at the University of Dar es Salaam. He's doing it at the Tano National Conference, which could be at the Dar es Salaam, but it's probably unlikely because it's a presidential address. Either way, while he's doing this speech, Museveni is in Africa. He leaves his life, he's in Tanzania. He leaves his life behind in Uganda, and he's like, look, before I came to Tanzania, I expected a lot, probably too much. The Tanzanian revolution, at a distance, one gets an exaggerated image of anti-imperialism. You know, he's kind of low-key critical of how Nyerere isn't as socialist as he would like. Okay? But he also says, look, I wasn't even going to go to college. Except for to be Look, he says, look, in fact, if for any reason I had failed to gain admission to University College Dar es Salaam, I would not have gone to university at all. This is because I was not so much interested in going to college as in coming to Dar es Salaam, to Tanzania. It is Dar es Salaam's atmosphere of freedom, struggle. You see what I'm saying? The difference. So this is the same year. This is a student. This is a child at the time who's like, look, I'm hearing good shit in Africa. I'm just going to move my life. While in Uganda, I looked at Tanzania and President Nyerere's leadership as sources of inspiration to all the struggling peoples of Africa. You get what I'm saying? So he's in Africa. Nyerere is doing the good ass work where he's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to inspire everybody across the continent to say, hey, you know what? There's good stuff to happen in Africa. And while he's doing this, or before he's doing this, there are people that, and I'm not going to hold you, in America, during this time, there was the, Black Panther revolution and all that, Black Panthers and all that kind of stuff. So it's different. But, in the 1980s, 1970s, 90s, whatever, the Black conscious community is telling you ain't nothing going on in Africa. Whereas people in Africa are literally moving their lives. And here's the difference. Museveni is the guy in Uganda. That's where all that gold was found. That's where all that gold was found recently. He was a leader for the last, 40 years or something. And yeah, he did an armed struggle, I think, if I remember correctly, to get to that position. The point being, and of course he was, sometimes I use this paper as an example of it doesn't matter how socialist a person says they are, you know, like when they get into power, it might be different. But here's the thing: Nyerere doesn't lose sight of what he was or what he is. And of course, I'll tell you this: I'll admit too that to this day, Museveni would praise Nyerere. So you say what you want. It is what it is. He says, look. It is Dar es Salaam's atmosphere of freedom fighters, socialists, nationalists, nationalization, anti-imperialism that attracted me rather than the so-called academicians of the University of Dar es Salaam. I consider my stay at the college as a means of staying in Dar es Salaam. So this is a man who uproots his life. You guys could check out this article when you want. It's pretty interesting to, like I said, I mean, usually I would just tell you guys to go and follow. Just go and do the Discord or what have you, but I'll link it, for whatever reason. And that's the thing. That's the thing that yeah, we can say, but the thing is that if you're a well-informed person in America, you could have just said, you know what? There's some good people in Africa. Go work with them, because that's what I'm gonna do tomorrow. In fact, not tomorrow, on Sunday. I'm gonna start with the allies, and I'm gonna talk about this. This sister just sent me some Chiambori. ADDI. I'm just gonna say, look, she's a good ass sister working in Africa. Go do something with her. Or just like with the Malema, good ass brother in South Africa. Go do something for him. Instead of complaining about this white boy, just go out and do something for these the other people. Too much Samuel L. Jackson for me, right? But anyway, hopefully that wasn't too much of a tangent. Let me go back to the PDF. I'm going to read the comments, though. I'm talking about America, Africans in America. But Bobby Wright says, yeah, I know. Bobby Wright says, Walter Rodney was at the University of Dar es Salaam at the time and was critical of Nyerere as not being as socialist as he thought. Exactly. But that's the thing. At least Walter Rodney went there. You know what I mean? At least he went there. And I mean, like, Nyerere is probably, like, talking about, oh, yeah, these people are criticizing me. And that's fine. It's fine. Like, the thing is that at least he did it. The question of, hey man, these white people are in control of everything. Hey man, we're powerless. Hey man, that's gonna get you nowhere, and it got us nowhere in America. And like largely, I don't think we would get anywhere regardless. But the reality is that if you have a message, like in America, the message is get the fuck out. That's really the message, because if you really feel like you're powerless, but you see, you're not powerless around the world. You're just powerless in another person's nation, and you're supposed to be. Everybody's powerless in another person's nation. Everybody's powerless in another person's nation. So the question is, what nation do you want to be powerless in? That's really the question. Everybody but a handful of people are powerless. You know what I mean? Yeah, they wasn't powerless, but it's like essentially you're the underclass in America. Is that what you want to be? You know what I mean? Because like it'd be better, like you see how Nyerere is like, hey, we're gonna benefit the Tanzanian citizens. That's what you want. If you want to be a citizen of a place where they're going to benefit you as being a citizen, whereas African Americans who quote unquote are citizens, don't feel like citizens sometimes. Anyway, Bitterman says, I think we discount the fervor, fever, and energy of that time versus bow times, or now times, I guess. People would move to that kind of energy. Yeah, well, that's the thing, though, because the thing was whether, like, when was, the thing is, like, who were the leaders during Amos Wilson's time? And were there any leaders? Because I don't even know if Tanzania ever fell, like I don't know the leader after Nyerere, but I don't think that he lost control of Tanzania. Like, I don't know, though. EL says, I think the emoticon's complexion changes a bit based on whether I'm on the laptop or cell. Yeah, nah, I think they know you ain't going out in the sun, man. I'm just messing. It's all good, bro. Bobby Wright says, that's true, Coco. It was a revolutionary time. Absolutely, Bobby. There was a reason for Walter to head there. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, during that time, yeah, everybody was, like, Africa was getting decolonized. It was a good time. But all right. First, it must mean, so let me see. I think I read this one. Something have decided upon implemented. Yeah. I think I did, right? For the truth is that we have not yet enough qualified. Yeah. All right. So the question, therefore, is whether we are prepared to make our plans, wait until we have educated and trained a Tanzanian for every job which has to be done. And we long ago decided that this would not only be absurd, it would also be unnecessary. An accountant is an accountant, whether he's a citizen or not. A doctor is a doctor. A manager is either efficient or not efficient. What really matters in relation to such people, whether they be citizens or not citizens, is that they loyally and efficiently carry out the decisions made by our government and our people. And the thing is that, like I said, to a large degree, that's true. You know, a doctor is a doctor, an engineer is an engineer, somebody's an architect's an architect. There's a risk, but there's always a risk. You know, it's an interesting question. To employ an inefficient person just because he's a Tanzanian when the job he has to do is crucial for our development is not self-reliance, it is stupidity. And see, that's what I'm saying. Like, if the thing is crucial for your development, it's tough. It's tough. Like, realistically, this is one of the issues that we have in Africa. Okay? If the job is crucial to your development, is trusting a non-citizen, and by non-citizen I just mean non-African at this point, like a Eurasian, is trusting a Eurasian where it's at. And that's why I'm trying to tell you, you know, you do want to, I'm going to emphasize, I think this is going to be one of the things in my next book, you know, because, you know, Koku talks about curriculums. I technically have like a you know, description of what I think like the fields that Africans should investigate for ourselves. Like, we need that already. We need that yesterday, because these are the crucial development, and we're always going to run into the problem of, well, who can draw up military plans, like or who can draw up military weaponry, and you might be like, oh, that's Wazungu, right? And now Wazungu can always, if necessary, can always sabotage your shit. You know, if another Wazungu comes along, you know. So what he's saying is like, yeah, if they're loyal, you know, and they're competent, then, you know, who cares? But what if they're a spy? You know, the way how Grenada is taken down is kind of like that. You know, they're building an airport. These Westerners and all these other people are coming in to build an airport. And then that airport is used by Ronald Reagan to go and kill Maurice Bishop. You know? It's I just, but at the same time, like, you know, I get it. Like, if it's, you know, like, if at the time he's talking about USSR, like again, like, there are some Eurasians who, for what it's worth, you might have to just take the risk, you know? But I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, not that I don't know. It's just I'm not in that position to say. And obviously, if I were in that position, I probably wouldn't. Whatever. Right. Bitter Medicine says, absolutely, Bobby. There was a reason for Walton. Oh yeah. So Bitter Medicine says, family, hit that like button. It's free 99. And then Bobby Wright says, all Ali Hassan Mwenye. I gotta be careful because, you know, sisters here. Succeeded Nyerere and reversed most of his policies. Yeah, that's a possibility. You know, I mean, that's the thing. Like, you know, it is what it is. You know, I don't know if I would say he wasn't in control. I mean, it could be a puppet. I don't know. But I mean, again, like, the whole, hey, everybody's out of their African mind it's like a good insult, but it's not like it's not actionable. You know, what do you do with that information? You know, what do you do with that information? Like it's just so unclear what to do with that information. And I think a lot of us kind of take the information of, you know, go out and read or something, read some books, you know, get yourself informed, get yourself in your African mind. And that's fine, except for when you become, like, I should tell you guys about this dude. He just started harassing me on Twitter. And he's actually a productive guy, more or less. But like, he's so angry and miserable. He's so angry and miserable. And part of that is that if you're involved in the conscious movement for so long and you're just being misled and led astray and given obscure, you know, I'm not going to tell you what to do, I can't tell you what to do, you know, just obscure messages, you know, you're going to get pissed off. Like, you're just going to get pissed off. Like even that guy who was, like I said, the guy who used to be on my Discord, he's just pissed off, and that's a thing. It's a thing. It's like this movement in the West is designed to, like, it's subconsciously pissing African people off. So to employ an efficient person just because he is a Tanzanian when the job is to be crucial for the development is not self-reliance, it is stupidity. When we or members of our family fall ill, what we want is a competent doctor, not necessarily a citizen. When we have decided to build a bridge, what we want is a competent engineer who will be able to ensure that the bridge will be safe and effective for its purpose. The question we need to ask ourselves are these. Firstly, is this job essential to our plan? Secondly, do we have a citizen who is qualified and has the necessary experience for this particular job? And if there's no qualified citizen available, thirdly, can we obtain a qualified non-citizen who will be accountable to us for his loyal and efficient carrying out of the job? And fourthly, what plans do we have for the training of citizens to do this kind of work in due course? Then, if we decide that the job is essential, and if there's no qualified citizens available to do it, and if a non-citizen can be obtained, let us pay a non-citizen to do the job for us. Pay. See what I'm saying? By doing this, we might, for example, make it possible for a village in an outlying area to become self-reliant because it can sell its increased production and thus support improved conditions for its members. If we do not allow this bridge to be built simply because we have no citizens available to do it, then the village will remain on a low level and without any real possibility of becoming a self-reliant, prosperous community. Ooh, self-reliant, prosperous. I used to say this. I used to say something like this. I feel like yo, Nyerere is like my brother from another mother. Like, no disrespect. Because, I mean, obviously he's much greater than me, but like that's my brother. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't mean it in a disrespectful way. EL says, I think we have tremendous talent, but we are scattered. I'm Haitian, and I can tell you that some Haitians are building cars in Haiti. A black engineer is even building buses. His company is called Coutard Motors. The problem is that we don't mass produce these things. I'll say this, here's the thing I want to say too. This Haitian guy is not a citizen of Tanzania. You get what I'm saying? So even this, he's just saying, if you can't find it in Tanzania, you'd want to find a foreigner. Now, the foreigner does not have to be Eurasian, but I think because he has this non-racialist mindset, you would want to go to the highest bidder. You want to go to the lowest bidder. You want to go to the cheapest. Now, the question becomes, will this Haitian guy work for less than this Chinese guy? You understand? Especially this Chinese guy with ill intent. The thing about, like I said, Bit of Medicine had this interview with RJ Mahdi. And RJ Mahdi was like, hey, these Chinese people will cajole your oil on the coast of Senegal, right? So can the Americans, so can the Germans, so can the British, so can the French. Like anybody can freaking drill that. Anybody with the heavy machinery can do it. The question is, but the thing that the Chinese will do is the Chinese will do it for cheaper. So even if this Haitian guy, like you said, this Haitian people are building cars, will they do it for cheaper than the Chinese? And the thing is that also it's like it depends on if you're going by the racialist mindset or not. For whatever reason, Tanzania, Nyerere was convinced against the racialist mindset. So, because I think that, yeah, I would rather, looking into the diaspora and all that kind of stuff, not the diaspora, because again, remember that we of the like the Caribbean, the West Indies as they call them, we of America are not necessarily the Tanzanian diaspora. You know what I mean? We're not necessarily the Tanzanian diaspora. We're Africans, but we're not necessarily like Eastern Africans per se. You know what I mean? Like we're just like, if anything, the Eastern African diaspora might be like in India or something. That said, or in Arabia, the Arab world or whatever, right? That said, I mean, yeah, I'm perfectly okay with that. Of course, I'm not a leader in Tanzania, but I'm perfectly okay with this. Like, I'm perfectly okay with what you're talking about. And again, what you're saying right now kind of applies to 2022, right? It might not necessarily apply to 1967. I don't know if 1967 had this same black engineer building buses and cars, or Coutard Motors. Like, we probably can look up when that was founded. And I don't know if it was founded in 1967, but I completely agree. And so it would have been like the same problem, which is that most black people around the world were not even qualified. Like you got to remember that this is like shortly after the civil rights movement in America. Most black people in America did not even have degrees. Like they're like you're probably talking about the first black engineer in America was around this time. You know what I mean? Like the first accredited engineer. EL says the problem is that we don't mass produce these things. We have to be able to find the funds needed to keep African talent working for Africans. Nyerere should look beyond his borders, but still in Africa. Yeah, but again, like you're talking about 1967. So if you're looking beyond your borders in 1967, everybody's kind of like, you know, like everybody kind of like has nobody to, like they have no engineers, you know. Yeah, they have no engineers. It's because like I said, like Congo had like 3 engineers, you know, like 3 qualified people in the whole country, and it's like a huge country. It's like one of the biggest countries in Africa, and it's like, you know, Revolutionary Merchant. So ELS is true. It was a different time. Revolutionary Merchant says, "Greetings. These are getting earlier and earlier." Y'all think? Oh yeah, I'm not getting good sleep. What can I tell you guys? I'm not getting good sleep. And then I say to myself, although I should have ate breakfast. But in this country, we also have a second thing, which we really desire the people working for us. Ideally, we also need socialists in every job, which is not necessarily the same thing as wanting a citizen for every job, because not all Tanzanians are socialists. But if a competent doctor also has socialist attitudes, then he is surely especially a great asset to us. And the truth is that the international reputation of Tanzania is such that many socialists from other countries very much want to come and work with us. That was Walter Rodney. That was Museveni. Now, difference is Walter Rodney gets assassinated in the West, and Museveni is alive and kicking and leading Uganda, right? So again, you know, you want to attract, like this is what you want. You want to build up a national reputation for your country, and people will come. You build it, they will come. You build it, they will come. You build it, then they will come, okay? One day in the future, Tanzanian socialists may be able to assist other socialists to achieve their objectives. Today, we should be ready and happy to welcome socialists from other countries who are ready to help us achieve our objectives. And we should remember that many socialists come from capitalist countries. It is sometimes the very fact that they cannot contribute to socialist objectives in their own country which make them enthusiastic about working with us. Like, basically, this is exactly what Museveni's talking about. Now, does his country eventually become socialist? No. Right? But he goes back and leads his own capitalist country. And that's important. You really want to inspire the leadership of African people. Like I think it was Tanzan was talking about leadership in Africa, like developing the leadership in Africa. And she's like, you've got to focus on the youth. At the time, this is 1967, right? No, 1970, right? That was 50 years ago, 52 years ago. Museveni was a youth leader, potential youth leader. He became a freaking dictator, sure. I mean, if you call him a dictator, I'm not going to say it to his face, but yeah, like, oh yeah, you're the leader. But you know, how do you edit this? But the thing is that, like, yeah, like you talk about inspiring leadership. This is like your blueprint right here. This is your blueprint right here. But Edison says we'll be here tomorrow at 6 a.m. It's a possibility. Tomorrow's podcast should be much shorter though. This one's kind of long, so I just want to run through. All right. So with all the what all this means is that we are to make progress towards the implementation of our policies of socialism and self-reliance. We should be ready to use all the people who are able to contribute towards these objectives. There are certain jobs which have to be done by citizens. Those we have now filled. There are other jobs which have to be done and done now or in the next few years, whether or not we have enough citizens or enough socialists. Let us get these jobs done instead of indulging our prejudices or our generalized assessments of people by skin color or country of origin. Now, again, I don't agree with this, but, you know, I get why he's saying this. Again, remember, you're in a different time. You're like in a different time. You're talking about, again, no black people. Like very limited. Like you're gonna find like 50 black people on the planet with the qualifications, that you're looking for. Like it's a really small number. Because like today you could be like, hey, Oni, you're trained in astrophysics, right? Sure, but you know, like if I were born 50 years ago, like the probability of me being trained in astrophysics is unlikely, you know, because like college was already rare, and then black people were like openly discriminated against for college, for collegiate studies. So like nowadays, like 20, 30, 40% of people in general have college degrees. Back then it was like 1% of people, you know what I mean? And that's like people. You know what I'm saying? Like people, not even like black people. I mean like 1% of people had in the Western world had college degrees, and most people in the African world didn't. So you know, it is like a different time. So you're like, hey, you know what? We shouldn't have these white people. It's like, yeah, well, who the fuck is gonna do it? Like, who's gonna do it? There's another aspect of our self-reliance policy which has also been misunderstood by some people. For the Arusha Declaration does not say that Tanzania refuses outside aid or that there is something wrong in receiving it. The declaration says, and I quote, "We are not saying that we will not accept or even that we shall not look for money from other countries for our development. This is not what we are saying. What the Arusha Declaration says is that the only group of people we will rely upon is ourselves. We will not organize our country and our life in such a way that there will be no development unless we get foreign money. And most of all, we have said very firmly that we shall not bend our political, economic, or social policies in the hope of getting overseas aid as a result. But if we get outside assistance to carry our purposes decided by us, then we shall welcome that assistance. Thus, we welcome the Chinese decision to help with the Tanzan Railway. Thus, Tanzam. Okay, I almost said Tanzan. And let me see if Tanzan showed up because I said her name. Nope. Okay, good. That'd be creepy. Tanzam Railway. Thus, we shall welcome an American decision to help build our road from Dar es Salaam to Tunduma. Right. So. Again, you know, the Chinese, because like, who's going to build it? That's the question. Who's going to build the railway? You know, even to this day, there hasn't been, like, there's not really a railway or subway built by black people. Like, to this day, 50 years later. But we expect us to have done that 50 years ago. Which is like, again, you could have, it's a possibility. But, you know, if the technology develops in America, it's very likely that most of the practitioners are going to be in America. You know, now, of course, the other European nations do it, but the other European nations have like have their own like educational, you know, traditions that go back in a way. Now, we did have a lot of great educational traditions, but yeah. So look at Revolutionary Rachel says there are stories of African kings trying to get his people educated by the Dutch in the 1700s. Those bastards refuse when you can expect from a people that would cut off the hands of their own for selling sheep to foreigners. Yeah. So I think I sent a quote. I mean, I shared a quote. I didn't even know about this, but apparently in what's it called? England, like the penalty for selling the sheep, because they thought that their sheep were superior. So they were like, if you were to be transporting a sheep or selling a sheep to even another European nation, right, then they will cut off your arm. Like, they'll cut off your hand. Okay, because they're sheep, they wanted to protect that technology. And also, I did find later, there was another snippet that I found, probably in the same chapter, maybe the chapter after, right, where he's like, if a manufacturer or an artificer, whatever, goes and practices their trade abroad, they are excommunicated from the land. They're no longer a citizen. Okay, like they no longer receive the protection of the king. Blah 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 blah. They have to pay a fine. They can't come back. They fucked up, right? That's life. That's what it is. So so yeah, like if like these people protect their intellectual secrets. And so it's just it's like, who's going to do it for you? It's probably going to be them, you know? Because protecting your intellectual secrets is actually, it's one of the things that they have, one of the things they do. Protecting their material secrets or their trade advantages is a thing, you know? China, like a lot of countries are like, you know, trying to spy and take stuff from them. But for the most part, you're going to run into the reality that Westerners are hiding their trade secrets. Some people will tell you otherwise. So this is a brother on Discord who just said that, you know, he asked some sister if she can replicate what she's learning in the West, and she's like, yeah, easily. But usually, in most arenas, Yeah, white people are really not like you could work in a bank for 50 years. You're probably not gonna be able to run a bank, you know. Um, Revolutionary Matron is saying also in the book Rebirth of African Civilization, Chancellor Williams was writing about the missing fields of education in 1961. So we know we have problems, and it's ridiculous that African. Okay. I think she didn't finish, so I'm going to come back to it. In fact, self-reliance is not really against anything or anyone unless there are people who want to recolonize us. Self-reliance is a positive affirmation that we shall depend upon ourselves for the development of Tanzania and that we shall use the resources we have for that purpose, not just sit back and complain because there are other things we do not have. See what I'm saying? Don't just sit back and complain because of what you don't have. And this is what I'm saying. Like, people in the West are doing this, and he's like, look, we're not Westerners. We have the freaking, we'll use what we have in front of us, and we may even use other people. And which I'm not necessarily saying I agree with, but I understand it, you know, in the context. But what I'm saying is that, yeah, you know, it is what it is, right? He says, we are saying to ourselves that we are going to build a self-reliant socialist society. We are going to build a self-reliant socialist society. We are saying, here is land. And that's what I'm saying. You see the difference? Like, that future orient is really important. His whole thing is what we're doing now is to become a self-reliant socialist society. And it goes back to the quote from before where it's like, okay, 90% of us are out of our African mind. Sure, fine, whatever. What does that mean for the future? Like, what is that building toward? That's the critique I have for a lot of you know, Westerners. In particular, yeah, a lot of Westerners. It's like how I said, like Carlos Cooks. So Carlos Cooks is another one of the top 3 brothers. So make sure you guys check out Carlos Cooks. Carlos Cooks would say that when Malcolm X would come to him, Malcolm X would say, hey, why can't we work together? And then Carlos Cooks says, we can work together when you have a program. Okay? One of the things about the Americans in particular is that they never have a program. You know, when we listen to the quote-unquote elders of Kaba and Small, we did not hear a program. We heard, hey, you know, we built this country. You guys owe us. We like to work with you. All that kind of stuff. Sure, you want to work with us. You built the country. You let us into the country. You know, you're great. You're good. All right, we got that. What's the program? That's it. What's the program? Because see, what Nyerere is doing, he's saying, look, we are going to build a self-reliant socialist society. Does it work? Probably not. But what's his whole intent and intention when he does anything or everything? It's we're building a self-reliant socialist society. You see? And what happens with the grifters is that there's no program. It's you know what? I'm going to collect some money and I'm going to build a museum. Or I'm not going to build a museum, but even if I have a museum and now you get to see how great you were in the past and how you're better than other black groups. You're better than the black immigrants, right? Okay, you're unique. You're different from the black immigrants. You've accomplished so much. You're not a black immigrant. You're a black American. Okay, and what is that? Like, what are you building with that? Are you building self-reliance? Are you building a socialist society? You know, are you building a capitalist society? Like, what are you building? Well, I'm building up my self-esteem. I'm a different person. I'm better than you. You're an immigrant. Okay. I made music. I made rock and roll. All right. Like, even if you did, but what about it? What is that? What? You know, like the guy was like the guy I told you guys, he was flipping out on me. And he's just like, man, you know, you immigrants, you guys take my culture and blah, blah, blah. And my thing is that this guy, I thought, like, I literally thought he would be a tether too. You know what I mean? So it's just like, okay. Like it's kind of weird. But it's like, okay, you think I'm taking your culture somehow, or I'm talking down to you as a people. Okay. And I'm just saying what he says. I'm not saying that this is what I do. I'm just saying what he was telling me because I'm an honest, transparent person, right? And it's just like, okay, what about it? Like, what is this going to build? You know? So anyway, let me see if I think let me just check the comments. I think Revolutionary Matron stopped mid. Oh no, she retracted it. Okay, she said, it's ridiculous that African leaders are not using this information to develop industries and teachers, educators in those industries so that we can develop ourselves. This was in the 1960s. All these misleaders are getting paid to talk. They are worried about filling their own bellies and grifting the mass of the people. There's no industry, and you cannot build the future with no programs. Exactly. EL says they definitely protect the cutting edge stuff. On the other hand, lower level stuff is readily available. Well, I mean, like, again, today in 2022, yeah, lower level stuff is readily available. But remember that 1960, uh, yeah, 1960 is just a different time. You know, it's just a totally different time. Lower level stuff in 1960 was the oxen, like the ox cart. You know what I mean? It wasn't. You know what I mean? Like cars were cutting edge. You know what I mean? The computers that were like the size of rooms were cutting edge. You know, today that's like that would be lower level stuff today. Although nobody would do that. Like, that's stupid. But yeah, yeah. I mean, sure, yeah. I mean, like, yeah. Again, like what is lower level stuff today? What is cutting edge today? And then the question becomes, what advantage will you have in making it? Like, if you make a bunch of flip phones today, your people are still gonna buy iPhones. You know what I mean? Like, you could produce flip phones, but nobody's. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be very difficult to sell mass-produced flip phones. Like, unless the people were really like, I don't give a shit about the West or something. I don't know. We are saying, here is land, here we are. This is the amount of knowledge, skill, and experience we have, and this is the amount of money we have to spend on supplementing our skill and knowledge, or on buying more advanced machines. Now, let us get on with it. Now, again, what advanced machines back then was like these giant ass computers, or these phone lines where people sat, like operator, like human beings sat down and transferred your calls. You know, oh, you want to call this person? Okay, sure, I'll transfer your call. Wait a moment, please. You know, like that. Like, that was cutting edge technology. That was advanced machinery. And it's like, you know, like today, I can't do any of that shit. I don't know how they did the phone lines back then where they had the people. But, you know, just to imagine, why don't you have that in Africa? It's like, yeah, nobody's teaching you that shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's a trade secret. To this day, I don't even know how to do. I wouldn't do it. But, like, I wouldn't know how to do it on top of the fact that I wouldn't even do it. And I wouldn't want to learn how to do it, honestly. Now, let us get on with it. We are saying to other people, this is what we are doing. If you want to help us, do this and this and this, for it is what we need most at this stage. The really important thing for us to be clear about is that we are not saying to other people, and now after the Arusha Declaration, we cannot say, please come and develop our country for us. And if you insist, we will stop being socialist or believing in equality or being anti-colonial. These things we will never say. We do not believe that anyone else can develop our country for us, and even if they could, we would not be willing to give up the determination of our own policy. It is we ourselves who will develop our country. We must decide to spend some of the resources we have, or the products of those resources, on buying imports or skills of machines from abroad, but our real emphasis will be on using the skills that we already have and developing the natural resources that we now possess. In our situation, this means that the emphasis on our development will be in the rural sector, and particularly in agriculture. Further, it means that we shall modernize within our resources, but we must modernize. In many parts of the country, we are beginning to follow the advice of our agricultural experts, but our major tool, the djembe, is too primitive for our present-day needs. We must now abandon it and replace it with the oxen plow. See, that's the lower level of technology. We cannot make progress by waiting until every peasant is able to possess his own tractor, which he can drive and maintain. Indeed, if we wait for that, we shall never leave the hoe behind us, for our present methods are too inefficient ever to produce the wealth which would enable us to buy tractors for all parts of the country, or to train the people to drive and maintain them. We are not ready for the tractor either financially or technically, but we are ready for the oxen plow. We have the animals, and the plows can be bought cheaply or even made here. There are simple tools which our peasants can quickly learn to use, and they are appropriate for the kind of small unit farming which is involved in the Ujamaa villages to which we aspire, or even to the amount of land an energetic individual peasant family can cultivate, right? So again, like he's really telling you like an IS is, you know, you can't produce the freaking wealth to get, like, a lot of us think, hey, you know what, we go to Africa and we have a bunch of tractors and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, where are you going to get these tractors from? Like, you can't even afford a tractor in America. What makes you think you can afford a tractor in Africa? Because here's the thing you got to realize, too. A tractor in Africa is actually more expensive than a tractor in America. Because in order to get it to Africa, you have to spend a whole bunch of money. You're transporting a tractor from America to Africa. So you now have to put on delivery. It's kind of like when I ordered this book. In fact, I ordered this good book. This brother, Bookman Academy, he's a good brother. He wrote this Black history book called The Black Past, right? It's very well written, it's very well written, right? I ordered it from him, and the shipping cost, because he's in England, right? The shipping cost is like half the price of the book. So already, I don't know how much the book was, because another issue to it is that the pound at the time was worth more than the dollar, right? So I don't remember how much the book cost, but I didn't really care. I think it might have been like 30 pounds or something, right? So that's already $40 for me, right? And then on top of that, the shipping was like 10 or 20 pounds. So it's already like another $30. So it's like $70 on a book that for him was, like I said, if it's 30 pounds, for him it's like $30, So that's the thing. And of course, if I got it from Amazon, it would have been $30 with, with tax or whatever, right? And of course, I have to pay tax there anyway. So the point being, though, is that it costs more just to move it. So now you're talking about, and that's, you're talking about just a book, right? How much do you think it costs to transport a tractor to a location? How much do you think it's going to add to the cost? Because now you have to put a tractor, instead of just putting a book on a ship, right? And then shipping it over to America or what have you, right? Which is a regular shipping route, right? So it's going to be a little cheaper for that, because it's like, oh, we're already shipping a whole bunch of stuff to America anyway, right? Now you're shipping it to a new country that just went through a revolution. Whoever takes that sort of shipping engagement is going to be like, yeah, I'll go that route for your for your book or for your tractor, but it's going to cost you more. It's going to cost you extra. So now you're paying. So now you have to get this tractor that's going to cost 2 or 3 times as much, notwithstanding the fact that your currency isn't even worth as much as whoever's building the tractor. So that's one of the realities, and I started standing up because my legs are tired. But actually, I'm just hungry. I should have freaking ate my breakfast. But anyway, so that's really what it is. Like we're like, hey, you know what? Why don't we just why don't we just revolutionize our agriculture right now? And it's like, sure, you can get 1 or 2 or 3 tractors or whatever, 4 tractors. The tractors are only going to handle so many acres of land. Let's say they handle 120 acres of land. If you're talking about going to Tanzania to revolutionize the thing with your 4 tractors, right? And you're talking about 200 acres of land. There's like 1 million acres of land or something, or like 100,000 acres of land. You didn't revolutionize the freaking economy. You didn't. And even if you wanted to say, hey, you know what, we could do 200 acres a day, right? You're not going to do 100,000 acres. And you still have to deal with the transport cost there, then the gas cost, and how to get gas to those tractors that are now running around the country, apparently, because you have no gas depots, no gas stations. There's so much infrastructure development that really comes into play. And you could tell I'm a serious nation builder, right? But anyway, but no, I'm saying that like nation building does come with these questions, and like national leadership does come with these questions, and we have to engage it realistically. And a part of it is that we have to engage it on the ground. You got to be on the ground and say to yourself, well, look, even if I did own a tractor, right? Even if I could afford this huge cost of the tractor, without, because some people might be like, just build a tractor. Okay, how many people you know how to build a tractor? But let's say you say, okay, let's make this tractor. How do you get the oil, the gas there? And remember, this is not the nation that he's handling right now. Is not 2022 where there's probably a gas station nearby, right? Where there's probably a city nearby. This is 1967 where it's very unlikely that these Wazungus had a fueling station in every corner of the village, in every village in Africa. You get what I'm saying? It's just very improbable, because for the most part, what they did was they found a city where they can do that stuff. But if they wouldn't going to just build fueling stations around the country just on principle. Let me see if is this way? Oh, was I on this side? Oh yeah. Okay, I think I was on this side. Did I finish this chapter? Let me. Did I finish this paragraph? Energy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so I was at the top of this. Okay. Let me see the comments. I should have ate though. I'm sorry, fam. My black ass just started standing up for some reason. Let me see the comments. All these misleaders, no programs. Brother Mosi, all right, peace, Brother Mosi, says there are black presence of longshoremen associations varying their position to shipping large goods to Africa for no cost. I think it's leveraging their position to shipping large goods to Africa for no cost. Yeah, I mean, again, but that's like today, you know? I don't know what kind of profit you can get from shipping at no cost, but and like how long you could sustain that business model if you have no cost shipping. That sounds cool, but again, that's like today. You know what I mean? He's talking about 1967. He says black presidents of Longshoremen Association leveraging their position to shipping large goods to Africa for no cost. Yeah, that's interesting. The KWZ Radio says it's about incrementalism. By the way, guys, follow KWZ Radio. It's expanding, and it's expanding in a good way. Nice, positive, informed, powerful brothers and sisters. So make sure you subscribe. So he says, we have to modernize our farming if we are to improve our standard of living. And we cannot modernize by buying tractors for everyone because we do not have either the necessary money or the necessary technical skill or the social organization which would make such implements economic. We have to modernize by utilizing the tools which are within our capacity to buy and to make, which are sufficiently simple for us to use without trouble and breakdowns, and which are appropriate to our present and near future social and economic organization. And what this we can do. The oxen plow, the oxen cart, the use of the donkeys which now eat our grass without working, all these things can make a tremendous improvement in our output and therefore in the lives of our people. We must move to the techniques with the maximum possible speed. Then when we have effected this revolution all over the country, we shall be able to move from the oxen plow to the tractor. But that time is not yet. Now we have to concentrate our attention on the immediate objective. So I think maybe Nkrumah just like went straight to the tractors. I'm not 100% sure. And it like bankrupts Ghana or something like that. You know what I mean? Like this man is frugal and parsimonious, which is a good qualities. It's kind of like what KWZ Radio just said. It's incrementalism. You know, go from ox and plow, then go to the tractor. Don't just jump to the tractor. Don't just wait on the tractor. Don't take out money to get a tractor. Because I think that's what Nkrumah was doing, right? Don't do that. Just like let's build up ourselves, and that's what we have to bring to Africa as well. Like that mindset or even that practice. We should be in Africa doing this stuff. You know, we get the acres and then we get the ox. You know, we get the ox and then we get the tractor. And if we can afford the tractor, why not? You know, does not mean that we shall have no tractors or modern machinery, working intensity in agriculture. We shall have these things to deal with special problems or working on large, highly organized state farms where there is all the work discipline of a modern factory. But they are not appropriate at the present time for the majority of our farming units, and in any case we cannot afford them, nor could we use them in such a way as to justify their expense. For let it be quite clear, self-reliance is not some vague political slogan. It is meaning for every citizen, for every group, and for the nation as a whole. A self-reliant individual is one who cooperates with others, who is willing to help others and be helped by them, but who does not depend on anyone else for his food, clothing, or shelter. He lives on what he earns, whether this be large or small, so that he is truly a free person beholden to no one. This is the position of the vast majority of our people now. It must be the position of all of us. For a community, self-reliance means that they will use the resources and skill they jointly possess for their own welfare and their own development. They will not take the attitude that the government or local council or anyone else must come and do this or that for them before they can make any progress. This will be the things for which outside assistance in the form of skilled advice of a capital loan is necessary, but they will realize that this has to be paid for directly or indirectly by them and their fellow citizens, and outside capital assistance in particular will only be requested after all local development with local resources has been undertaken, and only to the minimum extent necessary to affect their purposes. For the nation, self-reliance will come if the individuals and the different communities are self-reliant, and if the citizens together recognize that their way forward must be determined by their joint resources and their common effort. It means choosing the path to development which does not depend upon outsiders. It means a recognition of international involvement and a willingness to give and to receive help. It means a recognition that outside assistance can help to speed up development along the path which we have chosen, but it also means that the path itself must be one which is within our resources. Anyway, I appreciate fam for coming through and sharing this insight. Like Bro Mosey, I haven't seen Bro Mosey before, I don't believe so, but appreciate just coming through, commenting. Because that's really, I appreciate everybody here. A bit of medicine, Bobby Wright, let's read down, EL of course, and then Learning Curve, Revolutionary Matron, and of course Bro Mosey. This is I appreciate you guys. I'm like super hungry, I'm starving. I woke up, celebrated my weight loss, because I was like eating lighter. Diet is like I want to say like 90% of your weight loss, like just 90%. But like you're hungry, you know what I mean? So, but it is what it is, so I appreciate you guys, coming through and reading this with me, and commenting and engaging me. I actually didn't expect anybody to be here this early, but like so far we have like 9 people, which is actually a lot of people. It just went down to 8, so I'll shut up. So the war against exploitation. Of course, self-reliance was not the only point of the Arusha Declaration. The declaration also declared war on exploitation of all kinds. The nationalization measures and the declared war on exploitation of all kinds. Nationalization measures and the government action to secure majority control in major economic enterprises, one part of the action which has been taken and has to be taken against exploitation in Tanzania. Another concern of the government for many years has been the exploitation of wage earners by their employers. The minimum wage legislature, the severance pay legislation, and many other government and NUTA action have removed the worst examples of this kind of exploitation, although the problem of enforcement still remains in many cases. But the problem which is now worrying many of our people is the prices of the goods we wish to buy in the shops and the quality of those goods. So I'll say this, you see this minimum wage stuff? Socialists, like the Marxists, communists, like socialists in general, look at this as liberalism. Okay? So I think I read Lenin's work earlier, and Lenin is like, watch out for the liberals and their minimum wage legislation. So, just hearing that Walter Rodney was like, what was it? Walter Rodney was like, Nyerere wasn't as socialist as I wanted to be, right? Like, it could be because he was buying into the freaking sci-fi that the socialists put out. This idea that, minimum wage is not even a thing. Now, granted, I could say it because I don't really know per se what the payment model was in the USSR, so I can't say whether or not Lenin like acted on his no minimum wage stuff, but yeah, like again, like this right here in typical like I'm not a socialist, but I've read enough of their I read enough socialism or I'm familiar with enough socialist critique that I could say that this minimum wage legislation, you say this around a socialist and they will say you're just a fucking liberal. Okay, you're just a liberal. Because what this minimum wage stuff is, like, I'll give you guys the principle is why, right? It basically just makes capitalism more palatable. See what I'm saying? It just makes capitalism more palatable, and they don't want that. They feel like the opposition, like the liberals are their opposition in the sense that the opposition are making it so that the proletariat revolution, right, the workers overthrowing the bourgeoisie becomes less likely if they're comfortable with the socialist and with the capitalist leadership, So again, so he nationalizes, which might be a good thing, but then he's like, oh well, we're gonna do minimum wage, and then it's like, well, now that means that the worker, the wage earner, is no longer going to kill the employer. And so that's why the socialists, because they're quote unquote revolutionary, and they believe in overthrowing the socialists, the capitalists altogether. Now, how they distributed wages, I don't know. KWZ Radio says good reading, appreciate it. KWZ Radio, appreciate it. Let's go back. So yeah, I don't know how they did it, but I feel like they had wages, but I'm not 100% sure. Government has established a national advisory board on price control as a major first step towards dealing with this problem, but we will be making a very big mistake if we just treat this problem in a negative fashion. The distribution of goods, whether they are made in Tanzania or imported, is a service which has to be paid for. You see what I'm saying? Has to be paid for to distribute goods. It is no use our establishing textile factories in Dar es Salaam, Mwanza, and Arusha if the people of Sumbawanga cannot get the cloth in their district and from their village shops. Someone has to arrange to transport that cloth and to hold it in the shop ready for the day when the peasant has some money and needs to buy new clothes for himself or his wife. The distribution service is just as important to the peasant as the actual production of the clothes. Now, he says cloth, but actually, no, he might actually mean cloth because they might have like done their own home making. So maybe. All right, so I'll just say cloth, I guess. It cannot be handled by the state, and it is no use our laying down rules and regulations which are so restrictive that no one can earn his living by transporting the cloth to the outlying areas and selling it there. So again, you see, you know, so there are like 4 fields of the economy, right? There's like 4 major businesses. I think one of them is production, another one is distribution, another one is wholesale, and another one is retail. Okay, so those are the 4 things, and those are the things that you want to consider. This is why, and I'll admit to you guys, I did pick that up on Adam Smith, but it's just like common sense too. I mean, you could also see it in Amos Wilson's Blueprint for Black Power. I think he talks about at least 3 of them. I think he talks about distribution, production, and I want to say retail. I don't know if he said wholesale per se, but the idea is this. So you have this cloth thing, right? Somebody produces the cloth, right? And then it's warehoused, I guess. I think warehousing might be another one actually, right? It's warehoused in some location. And then warehouse is the wholesale, right? So it's produced in Dar es Salaam and in Mwanza and Arusha, right? Then it's produced somewhere in its factories. Then it's distributed. Yeah, it's distributed in Dar es Salaam warehouse, so on and so forth, like wholesale and whatever. Then it's retailed in the village shops in these areas and so on and so forth. But like basically the industry of distribution is moving it from the factory into the wholesaler and the wholesaler into the village shops. You get what I'm saying? And so, but these are aspects of the economy that were not present in the village life, in the regular economy. So. But these were basically people who were working, but were not working the land. You know what I'm saying? If you're truck driving, like shout out to Brother Bakari. If you're truck driving, you're a part of the distribution process, right? But you're not working the land, but you're doing something important because you're bringing clothes to Sumbawanga, right? Sumbawanga. So you're bringing clothes to Sumbawanga, right? And I gotta be really careful because of Tanzania now. But yeah, you're bringing clothes there, and that's what it is, you know. So when we're talking about what's exploitation of man and what's working for another person, and he's like, you know, realistically, the government can't do that, right? So he says we should not be so restrictive that no one can earn his living by transporting the cloth to the outlying areas and selling it there. So again, you're gonna have somebody who's transporting it, and they might sell it themselves, or they might transport it to somebody else and they sell it to some retailer, and the retailer will then sell it to the worker, and that adds cost, and it adds cost, and it adds cost, because in order for the retailer to buy it from the wholesaler, you see what I'm saying, they have to pay for it, they have to buy it. So again, you know, like when we're talking about economics and economies, we have to like be we have to be mindful of the vastness of economies. And I'm gonna tell you, I mean, like I said, Amos Wilson did mention this in his Blueprint for Black Power, and I appreciated it when I read it from him. But I also like, but beyond that, you know, I haven't really read much of that from most African people. But it's like that when you read the Wazungu, you know, and you know, I kind of was critical of Amos Wilson for reading a lot of Wazungu, but yeah, like, you know, part of the reason why he could repeat it to us is because he reads a lot of Wazungu. And, you know, that's, you know, it is what it is. Yet at the same time, we have to take account of the fact that the cost of selling this cloth is, learn his living by transporting the cloth to the outlying area. At the same time, we have to take account of the fact that the cost of selling his cloths is very different in Mwanza from what it is in Sumbawanga. See what I'm saying? The cost. There is no reason why a shopkeeper in this town should be allowed to charge the same price as the man in the southwest of our country, unless he is somehow being made to subsidize. You see what I'm saying? When you talk about price control, now the shopkeeper in Sumbawanga who has to buy it from Mwanza is have to sell it higher than Mwanza. And then now the government is coming along and saying, no, you should sell it the same cost as Mwanza. And so now, probably after hearing some complaints, Nyerere is like, okay, there's no reason why a shopkeeper in this town should be allowed to charge or be forced really to charge the same price as the man in the southwest of our country, unless he is somehow being made to subsidize the extra cost of the transporting locally made produce to far distant places. You see what I'm saying? The transportation cost is what will also add to the value. And that's what I'm saying with regard to the coltan, regard to the mango, regard to the pineapple. Pineapple in Ghana is so freaking good. I'm not even joking. But yeah, like it's worth nothing in Ghana. Okay? It's like I bought a whole freaking bowl for like a penny or something. You know what I mean? But it would be so good. But if I were to eat it now, it would probably cost me like $3 or $5 or something. Probably be way overpriced. Because it's being shipped from Ghana. You know what I mean? And so now he's talking about subsidizing the cost, because like when you do market control, remember he was saying that, and like I said, like some people might think it's a good idea, some people might not think it's a good idea. But you're doing market control. I think it says they establish a price control, right? National Advisory Board on Price Control, right? So you're doing price control, and what you're doing when you do price control, you say, hey, a shirt is going to cost this amount of money, but it costs a whole bunch of money in order for this guy to even have it there. So how do you do that? How do you do that? Economics is really complicated. Hold on a second. My fault. Economics is really complicated. So EL says the minimum wage would be a safety valve relieving pressure in the system. Exactly. But the thing is that they don't want the socialists, the Marxist Leninist type. They don't want safety valves. Because what safety valves do is they lengthen the duration of capitalist control. You know what I'm saying? What the Marxist Leninists are supposed to be revolutionaries. They want to kill the capitalists. You know what I'm saying? Now a lot of African people don't want to kill the capitalists per se. They're like, hey, but like these Wazungu are talking about, like when they say revolution, they mean revolution. They're not playing games. They're not they're like the whole outline is, how do you fucking kill these people? How do you get the proletariat to kill and overthrow the other people? Like, that's it. So what I'm really saying here is that price control is not going to be easy. If we simply lay down hard and fast rules for everything, we may finish up with the farmer being unable to buy the things he wants at a convenient place, which is certainly no service to him, and is therefore not the way to prevent him from being exploited. Now, again, you see what I'm saying? He's essentially, because that's the thing, we call it capitalism. What Adam Smith is talking about is not capitalism, okay? What he's talking about is what the economy was like around him. That's it, right? It's like kind of like a history book, right? But he just has a lot of theories and ideas on it, a lot of speculation on it. He's saying, market forces. He's basically, a lot of his book is criticizing quote unquote price control or quote unquote tariffs and things, but mostly between different nations, but also like domestically. And so what Nyerere is doing is Nyerere is coming across this socialism idea, and he's like, hey, let's implement price control. And he's saying, you know what, this is actually probably not being better for the farmer. You get what I'm saying? But that's the issue when you're kind of like absorbed by some imaginary economic system. That when you go into the real world, you realize that if you like essentially things are going to cost different for different places. You know what I mean? The pineapple in Ghana is going to be worth nothing, whereas the same pineapple from Ghana is going to be worth more, just off of transportation costs. Because nobody's going to bring it to you for nothing. If we simply lay down the hard and fast rules for everything, we may finish up with a farmer being unable to buy the things we want in a convenient place, which is certainly no service to him, and is therefore not the way to prevent him from being exploited. The best way to deal with this problem is for people to establish their own cooperative shops controlled by them, where they can see the real cost of obtaining something at a convenient place. Then they'll be able to ensure that they are paying the cost of distribution, but are not paying for certain people to live in idleness at their expense. If we do this, and again, like, I don't know why you'd even worry about this. Like, don't worry about that. That's my thing. I was like, don't worry about that. If people want to make good profit, like, let them. Like, that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Like, just let people do it. You know? Just let people do it, because like what's the harm? That's the question. Anyway, so if we do this, we may well find that prices in many areas do not come down very much. In 1962, the government paid for an inquiry into the distribution business. We wanted to see how far it was possible to give better and cheaper service to our people. The conclusion of this inquiry was that although there are some pockets of exploitation, especially where one shop has a local monopoly or where credit is given, Tanganyika had, on a whole, what they called a low-cost distribution system. However, we were not satisfied that nothing could be done, and we tried to establish cooperative wholesale and retail shops by government initiative. Then we discovered some of the problems for ourselves. Many of these cooperatives failed, and the shops have had to be closed. The most important reason for this failure were, in the first place, inexperienced and poor management, and in the second place, the high costs involved in paying reasonable wages to the shop workers. For the truth is that most of Tanzania's private shops, both African and non-African, are family businesses, where all members of the family share in the work and then, as a group, share in any profits. They had no fixed wage and often earned less than they would if they had to receive the government fixed minimum wage. You see what he's saying, though? Look at this. This is what I'm telling you about the socialism thing. You have the government now putting forward money, putting forward resources, putting forward their taxes to start these businesses, and all of the or most of the businesses, many of the businesses, fail, and the shops are closed. And while you're paying good wages, you can't continually pay these people because now the shop is closed, right? And that's it. That's it. That's exactly what I'm saying. Because what you have is, and then you, again, like, you have the inexperienced and poor management, which is a part of it. But for the other part is that, I mean, the thing I want to share, the one thing I want you to realize, or, you know, I want to just like emphasize is, and by the way, I'm super hungry. So if I'm saying the wrong words, just understand that, you know, this is a man who starved himself yesterday and then didn't eat today. But he said, but basically that the costs come to the government. Now, these are just shops, you know, shops are not that expensive to make, but imagine if it were a factory that was peopled with inexperienced and poor management, okay? And took up 20,000 pounds of iron and then did something stupid with it, right? Like it made, like, you know, fake Christmas trees or something, or like it made katanas, you know what I mean? Like, you know, who the fuck wants a katana, right? You know what I mean? Like, katanas when it's illegal to carry around blades or something, you know what I mean? If that's the case, the people are paying the cost. Whereas, again, in the other model of, well, what if you privately start your own shop, right? The only people that are paying the cost is the family that made the shop. And the family is willing to pay that cost because they're a family unit. They don't need to get paid. You know, if my son is, you know, being, like, I remember my father called me a gopher during a barbecue. You know, he was like, oh, today you're going to be a gopher. And I'm like, what's that? He's like, you're going to go for the hot dogs. You're going to go for the, you're going to go for the burgers or whatever, right? Yeah, like, it don't matter if you don't pay me. But if it's a restaurant, right? Even if it's a family restaurant, and he's like, okay, you're going to be a gopher. Okay, come here, gopher. And I'm like, hey, how you doing, Dad? And he's like, all right, you go for the hot dogs, go for the thing, you know, go to the freezer and do it, right? That's fine. Now, if it's a restaurant and you call me a gopher, right? It's like, okay, sure, pay me. Fuck you talking about? Yeah, pay me the minimum fucking wage. If it's the minimum wage, whatever, pay me the living wage to go for the hot dogs. You understand? And now if you pay me the living wage to go for the hot dogs, which is something that I could just do, just get up and go for the fucking hot dogs. But I'm not gonna do that shit for, ain't no way, boy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, to some extent, sure, but like you talking about every day I'm gonna come up at 8 a.m. to go for hot dogs. I'm gonna go from 8 to for 8 to 50, whatever. I'm gonna be unloading and doing all this type of shit for free for some stranger, and who's making money. Like, if my dad is making money, sure, that's my dad making money. But you talking about some whole ass stranger I'm gonna wake up every day to do that shit? No, you better pay me. Fuck you out of here, man. Out of your mind. And if it's a living wage, yeah. But again, that business model is going to, if it comes up against a family model, it's gonna lose. And that's the thing about the Ujamaa thing is that, the thing with the Ujamaa thing is that, when he was talking about the traditional villages, a lot of them were family models that do not work outside of that. And I think for one of these, Shoot the Breeze, no, not Shoot the Breeze, Enemies Within, I read this dude in Ghana who was like, a lot of the businesses that are succeeding in Ghana right now are family-owned businesses. And the thing is this, a lot of them Chinese stores and all them other places in America, like Arab stores and all that kind of stuff, they're family-owned businesses. A lot of them. Anyway, basically they have their kids working there and they don't have to pay their kids. You know what I mean? But their kids are, they're 12, 13, they can work. Let's see. So EL is about to teach us something. He says, when stuff has a different price in different markets, they call the arbitrage. It can be a business opportunity. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, they call that arbitrage. They can be a business. Exactly. That's how one of these guys, I think, on Shoot the Breeze, in fact. See, I said Shoot the Breeze. One of the Shoot the Breeze is this brother. What was he saying? This brother. Oh, sorry, not brother. It's not sometimes like my mind's like, what am I talking about? I'm mad hungry, fam. All right, so this white boy, he noticed that Bitcoin was selling for more in Japan than it was in America, or like $1,000 less or whatever. So every day he just sold, bought, and he just became a billionaire from that. Like if you notice a different price in different markets, then you can take advantage of it. It's a business opportunity. Now, obviously, there's going to be protections against that, but the reality is that, yeah, you can, like, if you see something like that, you could do it, and that's what a lot of people do. But if you're telling, if your system is designed to say no, you can't make a profit like that, you're exploiting people. Like that's exploitation. Then, even though nobody's been exploited, then it goes, then that's where the issue comes in, right? EL thinks it's funny that my dad called me a gopher. It wasn't. You know what I mean? It was mad rude and disrespectful, but that was whatever. I thought I ain't laughing at it at the time, but it was interesting. I don't know why he said it to me, but it was interesting because I would have done whatever anyway. You know what I'm saying? But he was just like, "You a gopher now," and I'm like, "What? An animal? Like what?" Revolutionary Major says we need effective business plans that consider all these different needs. Business plans have many of these considerations included, along with contingency plans for market shifts. Exactly. KWAZ said, I'm about to post the other shows on KWAZ radio. So KWAZ radio just sent a link. So make sure you guys go out there and subscribe, okay? Make sure you guys subscribe to KWAZ radio. We're it's like it's growing and it's so good, All right, so let's go. Yet this is no reason to give up because some exploitation does still continue. Price control for certain basic commodities is both necessary and practical, and it will be enforced, usually on a regional basis. But in addition, we should look again at the lessons of our experience in cooperative trading and see if we can make a fresh start. Previously, these shops were started on government initiative. They did not spring from the local community, so the people felt neither loyalty to them nor confidence in them as weapons against exploitation. But suppose a village community or the people in a group of streets decided to start their own shop at an Ujamaa basis, then it would really be their own shop to which they had a loyalty. They could jointly decide what type of things they wanted to be available, and they could arrange to share in the work, the expenses, and the profits of the shop they were using, just as we suggested they should do in relation to Ujamaa farming. Okay. If such shops start small and deal first in the basic requirements of the area without putting their prices too low while they are building up their capital, we may find that a cooperative retail system can grow and be of great service to us. So he's talking about like co-ops. What do they call co-ops in the West, right? This will only happen, however, if the shops spring out of the people. They cannot be organized for the people by the government or anyone else. So you see, some socialists are going to argue and say, why do you have the people doing that when you can have the government doing it? It's just like, again, he's just realistic and he's just leading. He's not like, don't hold him up to anything. Just make him lead. You know what I mean? This guy, he should have been the president of Africa. Okay, this is the man who should have been the president of Africa. I know people say Garvey was the president of Africa, and I know I say Carlos Cooks was excellent, but like they weren't really in Africa. This guy was in Africa. He was leading a country. This is the man who should have been the president of Africa. I think Nkrumah sabotaged him, and I think Nkrumah noticed that he should have been the president of Africa, and so it's just sad, you know. Obviously, I don't think his socialism would have been good for Africa. Just like I don't think it would be good for whatever, but. Like this would have been like this is like we had a chance, we had a shot, you know, and we blew it. Well, yeah. All right. This is in fact another case where self-reliant development is the only practical way forward. And if it does nothing else, the possibility of competition from an Ujamaa cooperative will certainly discourage private shops from exploiting their customers, right? So like, yeah, he's like, you can't sell more if the person next to you is not selling for this, like the same price. You can't sell the same thing for more if the person next to you is not. For it is not enough simply to say that the price of such and such a commodity is too high. We should be able to say that our cooperative shop sells this commodity at so much. Therefore, if the shop next door charges more, the price is too high. You see what I'm saying? He's like, show and not show, don't tell. Like this guy is so good. Oh my gosh. Like what pisses me off? So first off, two things. I want to say this. First is this. You see how deep he's speaking about economics and economies? You don't see this. Like, again, I could compare it to my reading of this other guy who's writing a freaking economics textbook, right? This is not an economics textbook. This is a man addressing his country. This is the presidential address. It's not even like this is the presidential address. It's not him writing an academic paper somewhere. This is him talking to every Tanzanian citizen. And it's so much better than what we have in the West in terms of the depth involved inside of the economics. And it's like, and it's not even like, it's not just like, and it's not like theoretical, you know, because like I said, I could compare it to Blueprint for Black Power, which did go into depth. I'll give Amos Wilson that credit, right? But it was theoretical, and like I said, like when I'm reading it, I'm just like, a lot of this seems like integration and stuff, right? But it's theoretical. Okay, it's theoretical. This is practical and practiced. And it's not just, and then see, with Blueprint for Black Power, it's like I want to say it's like a 1,200 page book, and like 5 people read it. You know what I mean? Like I remember for a long time I met this brother who was like, he started to read it and he never finished it. And I didn't finish it until I think it was like last year. You know what I mean? And I had it for like 10 years. It's like, it's not an easy read. It's not an easy book. This that we're talking about is the presidential address, and he's giving it in Swahili. Like what level? What level is this? Like you guys are like we're not even processing it. I'm reading it in English for you guys, and I'm being critical and blah blah blah. Sure, he's deep. He's stating everything, and he's going into depth about the economy, and he's doing it to millions of people. Not, the 5 people who read Blueprint for Black Power. No disrespect to Amos Wilson, but the book was not popular. I mean, we all heard of it, we all have it, but we don't all read it, and it's whatever. This is, I'm just telling you, it's like you can't even sleep on this. Like, this is so good, so African. You know what I mean? And I mean that in the best way, obviously. So you see KDW's Radio's sharing with us the different channels. So you got the Bitter Medicine Podcast, the Pro-Black Perspective, Harsh Reality Podcast, the Learning Curve, the Forecast Radio, the Brother Bakari Podcast, and of course Tanzan, the African Mind. So that's like, what is that? Well, yeah, let's just, you guys can count it. I can count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different podcasts. So, yeah, like get with it. Okay. Make sure you guys subscribe. Just click on it, subscribe. Give everybody, give everybody your time, and make sure you put the notification bell so that's on and so forth. Because here's another thing too. Like, a lot of us appear on those other shows. Unfortunately, I don't do StreamYard, so like probably my show is the least engaged. But like, yeah, like I think all of them like probably do StreamYard. So like, and you could always go up and talk and all that kind of stuff. And if you talk on those shows, like, I'll notice. You know what I mean? For whatever reason, and like we can engage that. And I mean sometimes I jump on, especially on Shoot the Breeze with Bitter Medicine, but like sometimes I jump on and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you guys subscribe. All right. But yeah, I'm telling you, this is like a presidential address. Like you got to be impressed with that. Hold on a second. Okay, give me that. My son woke up and all that stuff. All right. So he says there's another way in which we can reduce the price we pay for the goods we buy in the shops. This is by moving away from the practice of buying almost everything on credit. Let there be a stated price of goods and let that be a cash price with the extra cost of credit clearly stated. Then our people will see how much it is costing them to borrow money from the shopkeeper in order to buy his good. Sorry. Let me read this. I just realized that I got a distracting text. There is another way in which we can reduce the price we pay for the goods we buy in the shops. This is by moving away from the practice of buying almost everything on credit, which is something that we do, even in America, right? Let there be a stated price of goods, and let that be the cash price, with the extra cost of credit clearly stated. Then our people will see how much it is costing them to borrow money from the shopkeeper in order to buy his goods, which is what we are doing when we buy goods on credit, right? In most cases, there's really no need for credit buying. We buy on credit because we do not organize our income properly or because we do not save enough money at the beginning of the month or at the end of the harvest to meet the kind of irregular payments which all of us get involved at some time. Things like school fees, wedding costs, burial costs, etc. This is a question of self-discipline. Organizing, and so again, he's so good. He's like frugal. He's frugal. He is self-disciplined. Now, he wants our people to have self-discipline too. And it's probably unlikely, but he has it. You know, like I said, I used to date this woman. She bought her furniture on credit, and she was always broke. And she ended up losing her house and her furniture. And the furniture person just kind of laughed it off because it's like, why the hell did you buy this expensive ass furniture on credit? She didn't even use the furniture. She didn't even use it. She just had it because it looked good. That's the thing that black people do. And then she really did end up in a shelter. Now you might probably asking yourself, why was I talking to some woman with bad money management skills who ended up in a shelter? Well, because she was fine. But she's a beautiful black woman. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But yeah, you guys get it. Is what I'm saying. Let's go back to it. Bobby writes, Julius Nyerere and Macaulay Cabral had similar political and economic ideologies. Yeah. I wanted to read his book. I think it was Cabral. I tried to read it like one time and then I didn't like read it anymore. Learning Curve says, your show is highly engaged. You don't want me on the Discord talking about before coffee. I'll be incoherent. You know what I mean? Damn. Okay. I didn't know that. I don't know what you mean. But wait, did he say you know what I mean? I say you know what I mean. Yeah, I'm incoherent right now. You guys just don't see it. EL says, I remember Nyerere talking about keeping multinationals out of the country so that local companies could flourish. Yeah. He was comparing the situation to boxers. Yeah, I have that quote in the Book of Power. So in the Book of Power, I have one of Nyerere's quotes, like one of his speeches recorded because it was a good thing. And he's just like, yeah, that boxing one. Oh, that was so good. I just had to keep it in. I'm like, this guy was so good. He was comparing the situation to boxers, heavyweight fighters versus lightweight fighters, and he democratized the ideas and made it easy to understand. I was impressed by Nyerere. Yeah, he is like this man is just so exceptional. It's it's unfair. And here's what I'm saying: like, why is it that I'm in my 30s or whatever, and I'm just now reading this book? And I'm not saying I like socialism or I like the socialist aspect to it. I don't. But like this should have been most of us, like this should have been most of us. But like I said, like I read through book of, pro black. I mean, I'm talking about my own books. Power, something. Blueprint for Black Power. I read through that. I read through Chance Williams. I read through so on and so forth. And a lot of them are just theoretical. They're theoretical. They're good, but they're theoretical. This is legit a man simplifying it. I don't know. And you guys can see that you could like read it pretty quickly too. I'm just kind of taking my sweet time, but like you could see how you could have read it really quickly. And you get a really good insight into how Tanzania is and what their problems are, what problems they're facing, and how they're trying to implement solutions for it. Like he's solution minded. It's like this guy is, oh my gosh. All right, let me stop because I'm sounding too much like I'm falling over an ancestor. But he's really like top 3, I'm telling you. Organizing one's income properly is, of course, a particular problem of farmers who receive money only once a year when the crops are harvested and paid for. But such people, as well as wage earners who are trying to buy some more expensive articles, have a solution which they can develop for themselves. The savings and credit cooperative societies can be a very great service, both to the individual and to the local community. Many of these societies already exist in Tanzania, but new ones should be started, for they can help us very much in our individual and national drive towards self-reliance. Government has 10 full-time workers in the Ministry of Agriculture and cooperatives who are trying to encourage and help these societies. I hope that all... So again, you have the government working to basically build credit unions or banks or whatever. Our leaders will learn about them and see how and when the people in their area can be helped to establish them. What all this means is that there are many different ways of working against exploitation in our country, and often the least effective are those who simply try to control or restrict the activities of other people. For I say again, it is not enough just to accuse our shopkeepers of exploitation. Instead, we have to organize ourselves for our own benefit, and then our shopkeepers will realize that it's to our best interest to give honest service. The few who really try to abuse their position can then be and will be dealt with firmly by government and people. So again, like, is it exploitation if somebody's selling you furniture and says that, hey, you know what, if you pay me once a month instead of all of the money right now, right, if you pay me over a year, you might pay more for the thing ultimately, but you'll get it now instead of getting it, in 5 months. You know what I'm saying? Now, is it exploitation for them to charge you a small fee and get a profit from charging you for the good? Or is it just like the only way for it to make sense for them to do it? You know what I mean? Because why am I, like, for instance, let's say it this way. The furniture costs $600, right? And I say, look, let's say it costs $800, right? And I say, look, I could sell you this furniture. I'm selling you this furniture for $800. You're like, hey, I don't have $800. I'm like, how much do you have? You say, look, I have $150. And I say, okay, look, you have $150, right? Every month for the next year, you bring me $100, right? And then you can have this today, right? And you say, nah, F you, dude. And you say, no, that's not a good deal. And I'm saying, okay, fine. I'm not going to give you my freaking furniture that cost me $800, And that's it. That's the end of the conversation. Or you say, yes, I could pay you $100 for a year in order to get the furniture now. And sure, it's going to be more than the $800. But the reality is this: I'm only getting $100 right now to give you my whole product. Now you could be like, well, why don't you just charge me for 8 months for the $100? And the thing is this: because realistically speaking, I could also just not sell it to you, and then somebody else will come along and give me the $800 right now, and I'll have the $800 right now. You know what I mean? So you have to make it profitable for me to not sell it to the person who has $800 and sell it to the person who only has $150. And what's the profit? The profit is that I can get $1,200 from it. You get what I'm saying? So now I'm selling it for $1,200. And so it's more profitable for me to sell it to you at $100 a month than it's for me to sell it to the next guy for $800. And that's really what it is. Now, do you call that exploitation, or do you say, realistically speaking, yeah, somebody should get a profit for doing you a favor? You know what I mean? At the moment, like, for instance, somebody one time asked me for money, and they said, hey, I'm going to pay you back in a bit, and they never paid me back, and I have no interest on it. I didn't charge them interest because I was like, oh, they're going to pay me back, so who gives a shit? I don't need to get interest. So basically, I'm just down money. You know what I mean? Now, it would be different if they were like, if I was like, hey, I'll charge you interest so that every month that you don't pay me, the money just goes up, because now then I'll just be up money. You know what I mean? But anyway, Alawi writes, says Morris Bishop of Grenada and Walter Linney of Vanuatu were influenced by Ujamaa and applied its principles to their respective nations. Yeah, Maurice Bishop was a good brother, but again, I feel like he had a little naivete, and that cost him his life. So yeah, dealt with firmly by the government and the people. So again, you want to understand, you kind of want to understand the profit model on top of everything. Not that you want everybody to be profitable, but it's just a question of, well, why would somebody do that? Like, why did I loan this person money, right, if I get nothing from it? Now, I did it and it's whatever, but still, why did I? You know what I mean? I mean, part of it is that, you just had the money, so you're like, whatever. But like, why? Like, what do I get? Now, it'd be different if I got something from it, because then we both get something from it. But the reality is the only person that gets anything from you loaning at 0% interest is the person who borrowed. You know what I mean? That's the only person who gets anything. And then the question becomes, why isn't that exploitation? You know what I mean? Why is it only exploitation if I profit? Well, at all. You know what I mean? Because I don't profit at all unless I charge interest. Responsibility of leadership. In this field, as in so many others, what is called for is good, honest leadership from people who are really committed to the welfare of the citizens of Tanzania. And the kind of honest leadership which is required is not necessarily the noisiest. If a leader can encourage the people and help them to understand problems and policies by his constructive oratory, that is a very good thing. But it's not entertainment that our people want and expect from their leaders, nor do they want a lot of false promises about a utopia. I'm sorry. I just dazed out. It's hard. It's like I'm starving. Responsibilities of leadership. Actually, let me tell my son to go get some grapes. Go get some grapes. Like for himself, not for me. Responsibilities of leadership. In this field, as in so many others, which is called for is good, honest leadership from people who are really committed to the welfare of the citizens of Tanzania. That's what you want. You want leaders. And the kind of honest leadership which is required is not necessarily the noisiest. If a leader can encourage the people and help them to understand problems and policies by his constructive oratory, that's a very good thing. But it's not entertainment that our people want and expect from their leaders. And that's what I'm saying. What we're doing in the West is entertainment. Nor that our people want and expect from their leaders. Nor do they want a lot of false promises about a utopia which someone will bring to them. Hey, we're going to get reparations. When we get reparations, I'm going to tell you, man, we're going to slap these motherfuckers in their face. We're gonna tell this what it is, right? Nor do they want to listen to their leaders abusing some person or some group which he has set up as a scapegoat for the problems the people are experiencing. You know what? This might cost me a lot of money, so I'm not gonna drop it. Because I was just kind of low key just making fun of the ADOS FBA people, and I kind of felt like, why should I make fun of them? This transcends them this transcends them, like the groups, not the people, the groups, right? But yeah, like what? And this is the thing that's happening all throughout Africa. And it's not just America, obviously. Like you see the same thing inside of South Africa. You see the same thing, I think it was, who was it? I think Mr. Untouchable talks about Barbados, talking about the Haitians. Although I don't think they're really scapegoating them for problems, but notwithstanding, listen to their leaders abusing some person or some group which he has set up as a scapegoat for the problems the people are experiencing. Like this guy, like you have to understand this guy, because the thing we don't get, right? I think we don't collectively get is that Marcus Garvey writes this article about yellow journalism. He's like, we need to have the Negro world. The Negro world is going to be against the current trend of black newspapers. He's talking about in America. Black newspapers just highlighting the crimes, highlighting the bad things black people do. We don't want that. We want a constructive, positive, forward, future-oriented paper, right? But he's critiquing how the popular narrative is this negativity. And here you have, in another country, Tanzania, Nyerere saying, hey, there's a lot of people who are just going to give you false promises. A lot of leaders who are just going to be about entertainment. A lot of leaders who are just going to be scapegoating other people. We don't need that type of shit. We're not going to represent that type of shit. And this is the kind of thing you want people to say. This is stuff that KDRadio radio people are saying. It is. But this is before us. Bobby Rice says, Walter Linney met Nyerere in Zambia, which influences Melanesian socialist viewpoint. I don't even know Walter Linney. Oh, I think I've just read about Vanuatu the other day, though. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. I feel like somebody put an article on that on a thing. So Nyerere was so inspirational. He's so good. He should have been the president of Africa, but we done effed up, The leaders of Tanzania, and that includes everyone present at this conference, as well as many other people, have to show in both action and words that they recognize one central fact. Leaders cannot do anything for the people. We can only provide the necessary information, guidance, and organization for the people to build their own country for themselves. That's another difference between leaders and dictators, like he was saying. But you see, it's like you cannot do anything for the people. It's not I'm building a... Because see, y'all got to notice what I say when I'm talking to you guys versus when Tariq Nasheed is talking to you guys. Tariq Nasheed is telling you he's going to build for you a museum. Even Dr. Umar Johnson's like, I'm going to build for you a school. And like what I'm telling you is, look, I'm going to tell you what you should build or what you should do, where you should go. I'm not going to build. I'm not saying I'm not going to build it for you per se. I'm going to try to build it myself too. I'm saying what we should do as people is go out and build. Okay? Providing the necessary information, guidance, and organization for us to build our own countries for ourselves. That's exactly what my MO is. I'm not like one of the posts that people were getting pissed at me for some reason. I was like, why didn't anybody do the what was it? Some documentary. Why didn't anybody build the Urugu? Like, why didn't anybody do a Urugu documentary? And some people were like, man, when you do it, fundraising, when we'll I'll happily give my voice, or I'll happily produce, or whatever, right? I'll direct it for you, so on and so forth. I'm not saying I'm gonna do it. I'm asking why y'all ain't doing it. Cause see, I already know what I want to do. I'm just saying that there's like a lot more of us need to get our work done. A lot more of us need to get our work done. But I already know what I want to do. You know what I mean? I want to get to Africa, and I'm like, I plan on going to Africa. That's it. That's it. I'm just saying it. I'm just telling it what it is. You know what I mean? Leaders of Tanzania should, and I know you're like, hey, that's not too much detail. No, it's not. It's on purpose. You know what I mean? That's on purpose. I'm not. You. If you want to do something, you go and do it. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm telling you guys, hey, look, like I'm telling you, necessary information, guidance, organization, and that's another thing I want to do in Africa, to give the necessary information, guidance, and organization. And I want the people to do it, and I want to do it too. I want to be among the people when I do it. But the idea that I'm going to do it for people, now, you know what I'm saying? That's not what it is. I'm not, because I don't want to, like I said, I don't fundraise. I don't want to do that. Leaders of Tanzania should not be making promises. We cannot fulfill them for others. We should not be complaining. Complaints help no one. We should know the facts of Tanzania's situation, understand them, and give guidance to the people in light of them. You see that? Don't make promises. See, I don't make promises, especially if I don't know if I can fulfill them. Like I couldn't be like, give me some money and I'll make a school for you guys. I don't know enough about no school making. And so I don't want to take your money and not give you a school. Like, because I'll tell you guys this. I used to organize for this community center, and I never could have made it. I never made it because we never got the people. We never got the so on and so forth. And that like harmed me. You know what I mean? Like, I feel bad that I've told people, hey, look, we can make this community center. We're going to make this community center. We're going to make this community center. And it never happened. I feel bad about that I couldn't fulfill that promise. So I don't make no more promises. I'm going to go and scout and see what I can promise. You understand? But I'm not going to make promises about what I'm going to do before I go and scout and see what I can do. You shouldn't do that. That's why I say when you talk about Africa, you should just be in Africa and say, you know what? Like, you should have a country in mind. Be like, you know what? In Nigeria, I'm going to do this. Because I was in Nigeria and I shook the hands and I did the daps and I went to the dance ceremony. You know what I mean? I did stuff and I know I could do it. But you can't just sit up, you can't sit up in the West and be like, you know what? I'm gonna build the biggest library on the planet. Where? Somewhere in Africa. You don't know the people there read. You know what I'm saying? like you don't know when you get there whether they read it there or not. You should have an idea, like, oh, we need a library. But then you go there and you scout and you see, can I build a library here? Like, for instance, I could tell y'all this. When I was in Ghana, yeah, a library could have worked. In Ghana. I don't know if it could have worked in Accra could have worked. I don't know if it could have worked in the next region over, but it could have worked in Accra. Anyway, let me see what's going on. So Brother Makari's here. He says, "What's up? What's up, Brother Makari?" So yeah, in light of it, so he's like, "Look, we don't make promises." Brother Makari, you see this? Let me see. I think we just read this. So it's no. Look at this right here. I'll just read it quickly, just for whatever. He says, but it is not entertainment that other people want and expect from their leaders, nor do they want to lie to false promises about a utopia which someone will bring to them, nor do they want to listen to their leaders abusing some person or some group which he has set up as a scapegoat for the problems the people are experiencing. See what I'm saying? The leaders of Tanzania, that includes everyone in this conference, have to show in both action and words what they recognize one central fact. Leaders cannot do anything for the people. We can only provide the necessary information, guidance, organization for the people to build their own country for themselves. Leaders of Tanzania should not be making promises. We cannot fulfill them for others. We should not be complaining. Complaints help no one. We should not be complaining. Complaints help no one. We should know the facts of Tanzania's situation, understand them, give guidance to the people in light of that. Just to, because Brother Bakari knows good leadership. Ain't that good? And you he was talking about some folk. You know what I mean? But this was in 1967. But he was talking about some folk, and that's what I'm saying. Respect. Respect for that. You know what I mean? But that's what I'm saying. What were we talking about? So. Yeah, he's like no complaints, and that's the thing. Like I said, this brother reached me, and he bought into the FBA shit, and he's just complaining to me, and I'm just sitting there like, what are you complaining to me for? Like, what do you want me to do? Like I told him straight up, like I can't do anything about your newfound political ideology, because if you feel like I'm some sort of tether that's still in your culture, why are you writing me? What do you want me to do for you? So I just kind of shifted away and said, look, I can't support you in politically, but because he's a good guy, I'm like, if you want, I could help you socially, and he's like, you did tell me about, building up my wealth, and I have some wealth ideas, real estate and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm going to pursue that with a friend and all that kind of stuff now. And I'm like, good, man. You know what I mean? Like, let me help this brother out, in his personal life. Cause he's a good brother. Like he used to, push my Discord and, push my book to quite a few people. So, when people help you, you should help them back. It's that simple. Now, he did lose his damn mind, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? Hopefully the fad ends and he just comes back to reality, but it is what it is. But yeah, complaining to me, the whole political ideology is just complaining to other people, complaining about this or blaming, scapegoating other people. And, why you take my culture and you guys don't respect us and you disrespect us. We wouldn't go to your country and disrespect you. And it's like, what do you even fucking who gives a shit? I don't even care. Cause me personally, I don't respect you. So what are you telling me about somebody else respecting you? Like as far as I know, people stay disrespecting people. It's a cultural thing here to disrespect people. We call it shooting the dozens. If you're not disrespecting people, it's weird. You know what I mean? When you respectful of women, I'll tell y'all the truth, man. I got an advantage over other black men in America, a lot of other black men in America, just because I respect women. You know what I mean? When you respect women, you just got an advantage. It's like that joke. Chris Rock said where the black man's bragging about, I take care of my family, I look after my kids, and blah blah. And Chris Rock is like, you're supposed to. You know what I mean? That's not something to gloat about, but I could gloat about that if I say, you know what? I actually love black women. I respect black women. I like natural hair. I like dark skin. That's basic. You're supposed to do that, right? But just living that makes women say, wow, you're different. What the fuck? Yeah, okay, man. Don't go to me about other people. This country is this country got us effed up, Say what you will, this country got us effed up. So, don't come at me. You know what I mean? Come at this country or something. Anyway, let me see what the chat says. All right, nothing. All right, good. All right. This is essential. Leaders have to know the reality of our present position and then show the people how, by our own efforts, we can change our present poverty into something better. It is no use pretending that certain facts are not facts. It is no use talking about alleged low prices of sisal when the low world price of sisal has been, and for many years, a fact which has very important implications for the plans we should be making. Bad things do not disappear because we pretend they are not there or because we accuse other people of causing them. We cannot run this country by complaining, and we have been entrusted with the responsibility of running this country. Complaining that we are poor or that the world prices are poor or low is as useless as complaining that the rains do not fall. We have to assess our present situation, which includes many things beyond our control, and work out plans to change the situation and to counteract the effects that of the things we cannot alter. Then we have to execute our plans by hard and intelligent work. There is no other way. There is no shortcut. All right, look, I'm gonna have to. What page is this? 157. I'm probably gonna have to read this on Sunday, again, this one chapter, because I'm going to be talking about this in I'm just gonna make a note for myself. There's this paper that somebody wrote, like some Twitter thread of some woman I blocked, honestly. But she writes this thread kind of, I blocked her before this thread, but it's an interesting thread about black women and like black feminism and how, feminism screwed up the black community, right? And it's the same scapegoating, complaining, all that kind of stuff. It's good, it's well written. Like I said, I blocked the lady. But like before that, because I think she just kind of argues and complains about feminism and all that shit, and it's just like, I don't really care about your opinions against feminism, so on and so forth. I mean, I know it's useful, but again, like, what does it do for us, right? Because essentially you're just scapegoating, and this is the normal thing in America. Each of us kind of associate with another group that just scapegoats another group. A lot of us, for instance, like let's even us right here. Well, not me per se, or not all of us, obviously, but like a lot of us would blame the integrationists. A lot of us would blame the, so on and so forth. And it's just like the blame game, the scapegoating game. And then here you have a man who's like, let's like Garvey, a man who's like, I'm not gonna fucking complain. We cannot run countries by complaining. And we've been entrusted with the responsibility of running the country. Right? You cannot run countries by complaining. I got a tattoo. I don't do tattoos, but I got a tattoo. There you go. Cannot run countries by complaining. I'm just messing. I don't do tattoos. Our people are poor. That is a fact. It is also a fact that every human being finds it easier to see the greater wealth of the greater privilege of other people than he does to see his own advantages. It is not part of a Tanzania's leaders do. And I'm just like, fuck, man. Like, this is just, like, he don't miss. You know what I'm saying? I mean, besides the socialism, right? But this guy does not miss. Just imagine you're talking to 1 million people. Look, I'm talking to 10 people, right? And that's a lot. It's good. These are 10 great individuals. Okay, it's 7 now, 6 now, right? But still, these are great individuals. This dude's talking to 1 million people, and he's just going. He's like, look, it's a fact that every human being finds it easier to see the greater wealth or the greater privilege of other people that does not see his own advantages. He's telling you to look for the advantages around you and stop being blinded by, the grass is always green on the other side. This is like to 1 million, 2 million people. Like we could just dream of. We can't even dream of this for our own selves. We can't even dream of this wonderful value system. Like I'm slowing down the process too damn much, but it's like, damn it, this guy is so good. My son's all looking at me like, dude, what are you so hyped for? All right, but anyway, it is not a part of the Tanzania's leaders' duty simply to encourage the people in envy or to turn that envy into hostility or hatred against others. But he does not have to. Abibi Fahodie. Yup, I say it, bros. All right. Brian sneezes, you say African liberation. You already know. Or African, I think it's African liberation. All right. It is not a part of a Tanzanian leader's duty simply to encourage the people in envy or to turn that envy into hostility or hatred against others. It's not a part of the Tanzanian leader simply to encourage the people in envy or turn that envy into hostility or hatred against others. Oh, the immigrants are doing better than us. Oh, the immigrants, this is, And this is a thing that happens among African leaders to this day, and not just Africans in America. I'm talking about like in South Africa, like everywhere. Honestly, they do that. They turn hostility and hatred against other African groups, which is just stupid, according Malema would say. But he does have to make it clear to the people that he is not himself among a group which is unfairly privileged. Right? It is for this reason that the leadership qualifications has been laid down in the Arusha Declaration. For at the very least, it must be clear to our people that no leader will become wealthy by abusing his position or by exploiting others. They must know that any wealth he gains will be from wise use of the payment other people make to him in return for his service. But even this is not enough. Leaders must show the way to the development of our country and our people. If 10 hunters have trapped a rabbit, they are foolish idiots, wasting their energies if they stop their hunting in order to fight over the distribution of the meat of the rabbit. They would They would do better to concentrate their energies on working out a better system of hunting so that they can increase the amount of meat available to them all. Right? He's like, hey, the rabbit is too small to distribute. Right? This is similar to their position in Tanzania. This is a poor country now. We do not produce enough wealth for all of us to lead a decent life. We are like the 10 hunters with one rabbit between them. There's no getting away from this fact. Neither is there any other way for us to increase our wealth except by producing more. In particular, we must realize that this is no good. Are simply increasing the amount of money in the country. Government should easily order the Bank of Tanzania to print more notes and to give everyone a present of so many shilling notes every year. But this would not increase our wealth in the very slightest. The result would simply be chaos. You see what I'm saying? He said, in particular, you must realize that it's no good are simply increasing the amount of money in the country. Like you could, like, because people say, hey, why don't you just print more money? And it's like, why don't you just print more money? It's like, no, that's going to cause inflation. You know what I mean? It's going to cause inflation. To get this truth quite clear in our minds, let us take a simplified example. Imagine a village of 10 people in the Rufiji Delta, which is cut off by floods. Between them, these people have 1,000 shilling in notes. They also have one bag of rice. If the government uses a helicopter to drop another 1,000 shillings in notes to these people, will they be any less hungry, less cold, or less in danger from the water? Or if the people decide to make a fire and to burn all the notes in the village, will they be any worse off? But suppose the government drops more rice from the helicopters. In that case, the people will have more to eat, quite regardless of the number of notes which they have between them. On the other hand, if there was an accident and the bag of rice was destroyed, then the people would be in a serious trouble, regardless of the fact that they still had all their shilling notes. For they cannot eat notes, nor use them as shelter. Money is not wealth. Of course, it would be a different situation if, in this isolated village, one person out of the 10 managed to get hold of the extra 1,000 shilling, which the government dropped by helicopter. Total wealth of the 10 men would not be any greater, the total wealth of the 10 men, the total wealth of the 10 men would not be any greater, but this particular individual would be able to get more of the rice for himself. The other 9 would therefore get less rice because, let me say again, the amount of rice available would not have been increased by the importation of more money to this isolated community. If the lucky man getting all the extra money happened to be the poorest man in the village, then the effect might be that distribution of the wealth, that is, the rice, was better as a result of the extra money coming in. In such a case, the extra money would have been a substitute for a joint decision by the 10 people to distribute the rice fairly. But if the man who got the extra money was already as well off as the majority, or even better off, then nothing at all good or socialist would have come out of their extra money being brought in. So he's explaining that. That's pretty cool. And I mean, like, I'm not saying I agree with it. It's interesting. I'm not saying I agree with it. Forecast is here. He said, "What's up, Oni? Peace, everybody." And so that's that. All right, peace, fam. So let's keep reading. Our wealth, it should not be necessary for Tano leaders to understand statistics before they realize that Tanzania is poor. And again, he's the leader of the country. He's the president of the country. And he's constantly telling you guys, hey, we're poor, but we know how to develop ourselves out of poverty. You know? And that's the big difference. Like, what we do now is we say we're poor and let's get a handout from somebody, or we're poor and it's the white man's fault, or we're poor and so on and so forth. And what he's saying is, look, we're poor, but we know how to get ourselves out of it. Okay, hard work, hard thinking is going to get us out of it. And the thing is this: when black people, especially in America, when black people in America say, "Here's how you get out of poverty," a lot of us are programmed to say that's not going to get us out of poverty. And the reality is that you're not going to get collectively out of poverty in America. I don't think. I don't see how, because America is purposely trying to keep you poor, right? But yeah, individually, you could individually get yourself out of poverty. You know what I mean? Like I said, if I were to be apolitical, and go to school and finish my studies and become a professor, I wouldn't be poor. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I'm poor now, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be poor if I went and got, like, I would have a lot more money than I have now. Period. Right? That's it. I like my son. I'll tell you guys what happened. He dropped the RBG flag. You guys sometimes see me behind me, and of course I gave him a look like, how in the world are you gonna drop my flag? But I wasn't gonna interrupt the podcast to put it back up. And of course he's there trying to make his attempt at putting it back up, and it's like, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what a Garveyite does. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a little difficult. I'm putting it up now, but you know, that's what a Garveyite does. You don't make the flag touch. I mean, it didn't touch the floor. It just fell onto the couch, but still, like, put that flag back up. You know what I'm saying? We winning. All right. So anyway, our wealth, it should be necessary for Tanu leaders to understand statistics because before they realize that Tanzania is poor, we see and we live in poverty. Yet sometimes our people get confused by the sight of a few individuals driving private cars or by figures which the Minister for Finance talks about during the budget, and they begin to believe that somehow and somewhere there's a lot of wealth in this country, and that poverty they see around them is due to unequal distribution or to exploitation, or even that the poverty does not really exist. And that's the thing. That's the thing. Like a lot of us too in the West, we're kind of like, yo, Africa's rich, and it's like it's rich in resources, sure, but like not everybody has those resources. That's the thing. When I went to Africa, I was like, yeah, I'm like in Accra, I'm like nowhere near whatever in the world the resources of Ghana are. You know what I mean? Like the people are not surrounded by the resources. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing about when I went to Accra was that you realize how large it is. Okay, you realize how large it is, and that's a thing that like really like puts everything into perspective. So I would just say especially for us Westerners who haven't been to Africa, like definitely go to Africa. And what's interesting about that brother who I said that like he turned like he like went to meditate more or less, and he came back like he's against Africa. Like, one of the first things he says to me, because he texted me, and so because he texted me, it's like public record because you know texts are just read by the FBI. You know, just read by the police. But he said something along the lines of, he doesn't. Oh, all right. Anyway, he said something along the lines of neither is he going to Africa, but he probably never was going to go. Like he always thought, like he used to say he would, but like he just kind of realized. And that's the thing about some of our people. You got to realize that some people are talking about Africa with no intention of going, and they just don't know it. So I think he says. So he writes me originally, he says, I quit. And I'm like, quit what? And he's like, the server, which means the Discord, the ideology. Then he says something I shouldn't read aloud. But anyway, and he's like, I'm not going to Africa. And to be honest, I don't think I ever was. You know what I mean? And that's like a sentiment that, you know, and then you realize, look, if you're trying to build in Africa, like I'm trying to promote people going to Africa to build, right? And the people are like, people just have to be honest with themselves. Are you even going to go to Africa? Because if you're not going to go to Africa, then like I can't really convince you. Like I'm not like my energy to you telling you to build in Africa doesn't even make any sense. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. Like what am I doing that for? Cause you know, like I said, like this same brother, I would talk to him all the time, you know, advise him. He'd be like, hey, what should I do next? What should I do? How should I blah blah? And I'm like, go to Africa, whatever. And he's like, you know what, realistically speaking, I don't think I was ever gonna go. You know? And that's what it is. Like that's fine. Like the thing about people is that you want them to tell you about themselves. Like you want them to tell you who they are, before you commit too many resources and energy to them. You know, it's like this woman. Like let's say I'm trying to talk to this lady, right? If you engage her, you talk with her, then you figure out, hey, you know what, this lady is actually very materialistic. You don't try to change her, right? If she wants to. If she feels like, for instance, a lot of women will say this, you know, I want to go on vacations with you and blah, 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 and I want to do this, so on and so forth. Then it's like, okay, fine. Like, that's what you want from a man. Like, you know, it's kind of like, oh, this song. Okay, this song called I Got a Man, right? So one of the best verses in hip-hop, right, is when he's talking to the third lady, which is actually, for those who don't know, it's actually just him. He just does a voice modulator to change his voice, which is interesting, right? So it sounds like a sister. But anyway, he's positive K. He's like, the woman is like, he's like, I'm clean cut and dapper. That's what I'm about. She goes, my man buys me things and he takes me out. And so he says, well, you can keep your man because I don't go that route. You know what I mean? And that's it. Like you don't have to convince everybody. You don't have to change anybody. You realize, hey, you know what? This woman wants a man to. I'm not saying this is a good or bad thing, but you know, a man wants her. She wants a like. It's like these white people have this thing called love language, right? And some women have a quote unquote love language of gift giving, right? Other women have love language of physical touch. And if you're saying to yourself what you want to give is a physical touch, you might find a woman who likes that. Whereas, or some of them like positive affirmation. Some of them like, well, like I said, there's gift giving, right? And gift giving, right? Like if I see a woman, like, you know, there's this, sometimes you might see a woman who says, you know, gift giving and that kind of stuff. And it's like, for me, it's like, there are other guys for that. You know what I mean? I because for what it's worth, like I said, I'm a cheap ass. You know what I'm saying? I'm a cheap ass. That's what it is. But like, I'm fine with that because there are women who are like, you know what? I don't need you to buy me stuff. You know what I mean? You know, maybe they want positive affirmation. Maybe they want physical touch. But I'm just being naughty because y'all know the matron's here, so she's probably laughing as of. For positive K, all right, forecast is like positive K. Yeah, I like that song. Yeah. That dude. Yeah, I didn't even know it was him. Like I didn't know he was singing the women's part. It's a little random, but anyway. So let me go back to it. Let me therefore he says it says, let me therefore state once again what the real position is. If all the wealth of the people in the country were put into one big heap and then divided equally between all the people who live in Tanzania, each person would receive goods to the total value of 525 shilling. This is all he would have for a year, not a month, but a year. This means that the total wealth of the country is valued at about 5 billion shilling, right? Out of that amount, nearly 10.5 million people have to eat and clothe themselves. See what I'm saying? This is the real world. You have 10.5 million people. We have to run our schools, our hospitals, maintain our roads and our houses, pay for our administration, pay our army and police forces, pay for our government, and do every other single thing which we want to do in this country. See, because this is a man who's saying that he's low-key overwhelmed, and that when you're complaining about the government and how it's not doing enough, it's like realistically we don't have that much. And sure, we do have resources among us, but we don't develop our resources because we can't afford to. You know, and this is the real world. Like some of us, like I said, this brother in Africa, he's like this brother who wrote me that he quit and all that kind of stuff. He's like, look, the way how Africa's mismanaging their resources and they're poor and they come here to America, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's fine. But like in the real world, he's like, look, we have 10.5 million people who we need to eat, who need to eat, who need to have clothes. We need to run their schools. We need to run their hospitals. We need to maintain their roads. We need to pay for our administration. We need to pay for our army. We need to pay for our government and do every single thing we want to do in this country. It's not cheap. And we only have $5 billion to do it. And you might be like, well, $5 billion is a lot of money. Yes, it's a lot of money, but not to feed and clothe 10 million people. It's not enough to run hospitals and schools and maintain roads and pay for administration and pay for government, pay for armies, pay for public forces. $5 billion then, 5 billion shilling at that, is not a lot of money. You know? It's a lot of money for one person. It's a lot of money for 10 people. But for 10 million people who need to, and that's a lot for disposable income, not for running 10, like for being responsible for 10 million lives. 10 million human beings. That's like a fourth of the African American population right now. It could have been, maybe for Hudia. It could have been the entire African population African American population at that time. Well, no, it was like 20 million at the time. But in addition, it is from this same argument that we have to invest for a better life in the future by building new roads and communication, by building factories, houses, new schools, and so on. In fact, the total wealth available to be spent by all the people of Tanzania during 1 year is much less than the amount which the government of the United States of America spends on its military in 1 week. This should be remembered by every well-off Tanzanian who likes to live in luxury. And again, like I said, there's these sisters who want to live in luxury. And it's like, you know, you tell me that, you know, it's like, okay, I get it. And like, you know, if that's really like what you want, like, I can't afford it. Low key. You know what I mean? Like, I can't. Cause my thing is about being frugal and, you know, parsimony and going to develop Africa. I don't have time to be like just giving luxury. And like, there are guys who do, you know what I mean? Like, you know, maybe, you know, the brothers in the chat, you know, they're just like, yo, I got it, you know? Forecast is like, I'll talk sweet on the phone. A man writes love letters, right? Yeah, exactly. Like, shit, you know what I mean? Like, you know, shit, that's me though. I talk sweet. I don't know about no love letters. Like, you know? Well, I like how you said, like, your man's Pee Wee Herman, man. Like, oh, I still say that to this day. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? What do you say? He said, I'm Daddy Longstrokes, while your man's Pee Wee Herman or something like that. Like, yeah. I mean, I remember the lyrics. It's just hard to remember it right now off, like, whatever. But I remember the lyrics. If I was just rapping it, but I'm not going to rap it for y'all. But yeah, I do the same thing, man. You know, I'm Big Daddy Longstrokes while your man's Pee Wee Herman. I said, yeah, sure. Yeah, that's game, man. You know what I'm saying? However, we want to divide. We divide our wealth between us. We are a poor nation. There's no getting away from that fact. And anyone who pretends otherwise by promising the people riches is trying to fool the people, and he should be condemned. This does not mean he's talking to the people. I love it. I love it. This does not mean that the distribution of our total wealth between different groups of people is unimportant. Of course, it is very important, and one of the points made in the Arusha Declaration is that there must be greater equality of incomes between the different peoples in the country. All that I am concerned to stress here is that the amount which we have to distribute it is small. We are like the 10 hunters with one rabbit, whom I referred to earlier. Our major preoccupation must be to increase our wealth, and the amount of time and energy we spend on squabbling over what we now have should be very limited indeed. And again, this is 50 years later and we're still in the same piece of, like, I'm mad. That's partly why I'm reading the stupid Wealth of Nations, because it's like, we want to build our wealth. Now, we can't do it like Wazungu, but we should at least see what Wazungu did. The same way Wazungu couldn't do it like China, because the thing that one of the favorite parts of the book is that he's like, the three richest nations in history are India, China, and Egypt. He's like ancient Egypt. Those are the three richest countries. And then he says, let's see what they fucking did. Let's see what they did. And he's like, yeah, they had a lot of agriculture. And so we as Europeans should do the same. That's what he was doing. So it's like, yeah, you want to study other people who are wealthier than you. That's what Malcolm X told us. Malcolm X said, anytime somebody's more successful than you, they're doing something that you're not. So what are they doing? And of course, part of it is colonization, part of it is slavery, part of it is that. But a part of it is also managing their money and developing themselves. Now, obviously, a large part is that colonization, but that's the thing. That's the big difference. There was this one socialist I used to follow. I couldn't do it anymore. But like, she was like, I think she was in an interview and they were like, how do you, they were like, we should have Africans make money. And she's like, we can't make money because we're not going to colonize and enslave anybody. And it's like, that's not the only way. That's not the only way. You could also implement policies that are positive and develop wealth. You can. Now, it's not going to be as gradual, as rapid as enslaving other people, sure, but, we're not, like, you just look at what works and what you're willing to do. What you're willing to do. No, slavery, no, right? But still learn what you're able to do, because even in Tanzania, you see the private shop is making more than the government shop. And based off what? Cutting costs. And it's like, it's not even the thing that, and here's the thing too, it's like, it doesn't even just have to be that way. There's a way. I think he was saying, I think some brother was in my, on my Discord saying that the Igbo, when they do business, that you can do an apprenticeship. You can work for somebody else at the promise that they will train you on how to manage your own shop. Like, you basically you could work for less so that they can train you how to make your own shop and then pay for your shop later in the future. You know what I mean? So you could work for 5 years for somebody, and then while you're not really getting paid per se, or you're getting paid like a really like below the minimum, they're going to then buy a shop for you, and you learned all the freaking skills on how to manage your own shop. Or something like that. Or they could help you pay for a shop. Whatever it could be. The point is that there are ways around it, and if you don't study other groups, or even your own groups at this point, but if you don't study anything, then you're just not going to, and then all you're doing is comparing things to an imaginary economy. An economy that doesn't exist, right? You're screwing over your own people. I'm telling you, you're screwing over your own people. Let's see what the comments are. Forecast says, "Hello, he said your man a headache. I'll be your aspirin, right? I got a man. You got a what? How long you had that problem? I'll tell you, that's all right there." EL says 100%. Success leaves clues. Yeah, you got to learn. I'm like, you got to learn. You got to learn. I'll say this, for instance, Marcus Garvey, and I don't want Forecast to use this against Marcus Garvey, but Marcus Garvey, when he came to America, he came, his thick Jamaican accent. He was talking in America. I think his first speech, he fell off the stage or something. People didn't know what he was talking about. Now he's a brother, read Booker T. Washington, understands self-reliance. He's finna do it. He's finna be a legend, right? I mean, he's booed off, just like, what's her name? Lauryn Hill's booed off. But of course, Lauryn Hill's not no master organizer. But notwithstanding, he's booed off. And then what he does, and I can't remember the details correctly, but I think he goes to a black church ran by a white man in America. And he sees how the white man is talking, the white pastor. So a lot of the way how a lot of black pastors are talking now, I think we call it like evangelical. They got it from this, like, not that they got it from, but a popular orator of the time was this white boy who had this bombastic style. And Marcus Garvey said, let me do that shit. And he did it, and it went with it. It's like if you see somebody's more successful, so basically you want to talk to a black crowd of Christians, and it's white, and you can't go anywhere with them. You're not making them whatever. Then a white guy is in front of the same black Christians, and he's getting them. Then you say to yourself, what is this white man doing? Because he's not giving them money. What is he doing? And so if he's talking, well, you got to, the black man is the whatever. If he's doing that, then you do it, and now we're talking about Marcus Garvey. You understand? And I'm not saying Marcus Garvey owed it to this dude. I'm just telling you that be realistic and go and look at what other people are doing. The same way, if you're gonna have cars and bicycles in Africa, you're going to be looking at what white people are doing, because technically we didn't make these cars or these bicycles. You understand? You didn't. Now, maybe possibly you made bicycles. I don't know. But cars, no. I'm pretty sure white people made the cars and the airplanes. At least that's what they tell us. Like they tell us it was like the Wright brothers who made the airplane. I don't know. But it's just my impression is that the Americans actually, like, I'll give Americans what they credit. Like if I do video games, I'll give them credit for making video games. You know what I mean? Maybe not board games, but video games, I'll give them credit. And so if I were to bring video games to Africa, I know damn well I'm going to be looking at what white people are doing. Like anytime I'm trying to program my games, I'm looking at what white people are programming, like how they program. They leave a whole bunch of clues on how to program shit. And it's like if they're more successful at making games than me, I can't just close my eyes and be like, oh, and sure, you could say it's just technical know-how I'm talking about. And that's what it is. Sometimes you got to look at know-how, some of it just being technical and saying, you know what, that's how you technically do something. Then I'm going to learn from, whomever, but you want to compare it to reality. Like wealth building could be technical. There's a technical way. There's also, hey, let me just not pay people, which is terrible. That's the exploitation you really don't want to do. But then there's also if I save 10% of my money as opposed to saving 5% of my money, I could probably, eke out a better living. If I'm not buying luxury, whenever I want to mess with a woman, then I might have some money for whatever I want to do, So it is what it is. Hopefully that was a long distraction. Let me see. Hold on a second. So I see Bittermez and shooting something at me, so I don't know what it is. Oh, you mean talking about white folk? Oh yeah. Forecast says, yeah, you don't have to enslave your own to build industries. Yeah, you don't. EL says we need to be solution oriented. Bobby Wright says, I think many socialists equate monopoly capitalism with small businesses when they talk about exploitation. Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's so loose. It's like, no, the small business owner is called the petty bourgeoisie in real Marxian terms. The petty bourgeoisie is not the enemy. The petty bourgeoisie is Engels. Engels was, no, I think Engels was actually a proletariat or bourgeoisie. But yeah, the bourgeoisie, the whole idea is the proletariat fight the bourgeoisie. It nothing to do with the small business. Bitter Medicine says only showing growth. I remember when he would reject this thought stream of copying white folk. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Well, you tell me what you're talking about. Forecast says I wouldn't hold it against him. I might fall off the stage and boot off when I try. But I think Marcus Garvey was being smart, learning how to reach the people. Yeah. Because I've stood in front of audiences. I had my little stage fight, once upon a time. It is what it is. In fact, that's life. That's life. I can tell you guys about this one time I walked into this Instagram model and I was acting a fool, and then after that, she taught me don't act like an idiot, don't act like a nervous person, and just act like a damn grown man. And so I do that, talk to some other sisters, and you get the number. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, what we do as regards to the distribution of income in Tanzania, and what we are plans of our distribution of the wealth we create, how do we propose to divide it fairly? First, ever since independence, we have been gradually making our taxation system more progressive, which means that the higher your income, the greater proportion of it you pay in taxes. And so again, this another thing is income tax, progressive income tax. That's a liberal policy. Like I said, you find that in Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So a real socialist would hate you for this, right? Thus, for example, but it's a stupid ass criticism because this is exactly what you should be doing. Thus, for example, there are only 10 people in our whole country who have an income of 300,000 shillings or more in a year, and these people each pay more than 2/3 of that amount to the government in direct taxation. So again, during this time, it'd be 1940s, Franklin Delano Roosevelt charging, I think, 90% to the top earners, right? But here's the thing about that. You're charging 90% to the top earners, right? And yet this is the leading capitalist country on the planet. You understand? It's the leading capitalist country on the planet. Like during World War II, this is the leading capitalist country. The Great New Deal or whatever. No, Lyndon B. Johnson, Great New Deal. But whatever Franklin Roosevelt was. That's the leading capitalist country, and it's charging 90% taxation on the top, the wealthiest people. And nobody even gives a shit. Obviously you can get taxed cheaper abroad, but, during that time, what was available. After that, luxury goods they want to buy are also very heavily taxed, right? Of course, they remain wealthy in comparison with the rest of us, but they are nothing like as wealthy as they would be if they lived in almost any other country of the world. And people with much lower incomes than that also feel the effect of our heavily progressive tax system, and quite rightly. Any senior civil servant, any minister, or any other highly qualified worker in Tanzania will be willing to give you evidence of this, even if he is too much of a socialist to complain about it. Taxation policy is and will be a very important and very effective way of controlling income differentials in this country. Now, here's the thing I want to say this about America. In America, if you don't earn enough money, you actually will get money back from taxes. Like you'll get a tax refund. And all that kind of stuff. Now, it is what it is. All right, so, all right, let's see what the comment is. Second, we have to put a stop to any future large-scale exploitation of our workers and peasants through the private ownership of the means of production and exchange. In February, we rounded off a number of smaller measures which restricted opportunities for exploitation of this type by nationalizing the banks, the insurance business, a number of large firms involved in the food industry, etc. We cut these straws. At the same time, we took control of a number of other businesses. In other words, we put our finger on the straw so as to control the amount which goes through it. Thirdly, we have to put a stop to wage and salary increases at the top level, and have, even in the case of people working directly for the government, succeeded in cutting their incomes. Our jobs now is to make sure that the top wages of Tanzania and outside the government sector also get involved in the high-level freeze. For however much our total national income is increased by our efforts in the coming years, it is highly unlikely that the increase will justify any addition to the top salaries in the foreseeable future. So again, he's kind of cutting back on the top salary, but we have to see why, and I get it, because a lot of people will say, yeah, we totally agree that this person shouldn't be paid this much money as a CEO. But I think a lot of reasons why you pay that much money for a CEO is because the person is because if you might actually like them, not like you might actually quote unquote need them. And if somebody else is paying higher than you, then they wouldn't. You know what I mean? Like, let's say it this way: I got a nice business of selling. Let's say I was selling whatever, right? But you are very competent at selling whatever I'm selling better than I am, right? Then if I want you to work for me, I'll have to pay you a lot of money, but somebody already hired you for a lot of money as it is. So if I want you to work for me, I'd have to pay you more than the other person is willing to pay you. You get what I'm saying? And that's where it becomes these huge ass numbers. Now, obviously, if you do a high level freeze, then that's not a thing anymore. So it's not a bad idea. But I'm just telling you guys what the principle behind the high level freeze is. Can I say no? I think what happened with that's what I'm going to say though. Bobby Rice says Roosevelt pushed the New Deal. I thought it was Roosevelt, but I also thought it was Lyndon B. Johnson because Roosevelt was killed or something like that. Or did he sign it or something? But I think that the taxation level, I don't know for off the top of my head, but I think it was up to 90%. But it might not have been. It might have been 60%. I don't know. But I think it was up to 90% that they taxed the top bracket. And that's the thing too. Like as a government, you could just tax 100% after a certain level. Because the way how the progressive income tax works is that realistically, some of your money is taxed at this rate, another part of your money is taxed at this rate, another part of your money is taxed at this rate, and then you could just say at a higher level, we're taxing 100% of it. You know what I mean? That just forces a freeze right there. You know what I mean? That just forces a freeze right there. But yeah. So yeah. Oh yeah. So I was gonna say about that the thing that Bernie Madison said. I think what it is that it's not so much that I don't read white folk. Is that I wouldn't quote them. So I mean I quote them for the podcast, but I wouldn't write in my books, and the white man said so on and so forth. You know what I mean? Because that's I feel like that's gonna confuse us as an African people that we should be looking at Wazungu Not to say that we shouldn't look at Wazungu, but I don't think that me personally should tell people to. I don't know. I guess I technically am saying that now, but so I can see what you're talking about. EL says I heard about that 91% tax rate. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was. I think that's what it was. It was like really high. Bobby Wright says only was this Tanzanian socialism equivalent to Soviet communism, dictatorship of the proletariat. No, that's what I'm saying. No, so I'm saying he was doing his own thing. And the thing is, Stalin was doing his own thing too. Lenin was doing his own thing, different from Stalin. Trotsky was doing his own thing, different from Stalin. Mao was doing his own thing, different from Mao. So it's like to go to any of these people and say, "Hey, you're not following up Marx." Marx was a sci-fi author. He was a science fiction author. Marx thought about his revolution in terms of what it could do for England or possibly Germany. It was not Russia. There was no way that Marx would have never thought it could have worked in Russia because Russia wasn't an advanced capitalist community. Basically, the socialists are just stupid. They're just stupid. No disrespect to any socialists, but it's just like they just don't know. And so these people are like essentially everybody else was kind of like, hey, we like the whole equality of man thing, and how do you make that work? But you can't like the doctrinaire Marxists. It's just like ridiculous. It's like if I were to just like compare everything to, you're not living the Star Trek existence, or I do watch this show called The Orville, or I watched it. It's basically like the Star Trek or whatever, but it's like you're not living the Orville. You know what I mean? Like that's stupid. There's a point where you just have to realize that people are dealing with real world. What Lenin was doing was bringing electricity to all of Russia, where electricity was pretty much non-existent. You know what I mean? What Mao was doing was talking about bringing industry and industrial, and revolutionizing the agriculture, where the agriculture was pretty much like what Tanzania had. And Tanzania is like, hey, let's do pretty much like what Mao was doing. You know what I mean? But like saying, hey, you know what? You got to follow what Marx was doing. Because Stalin got the same critique. Lenin got the same critique. And it's like real world is not, you can't critique it based off of sci-fi. I mean, even if you don't think it's sci-fi, it is sci-fi. Because just to clarify for those people, one of the primary doctrines of social, look at this. I want to see if I can bring it up. One of the primary doctrines of Marxism is to each according to his need. Yeah, to each according to his need, from each according to his ability. To each according to need. Yeah. So that's the primary doctrine. You get what I'm saying? That's the primary doctrine. I'm going to show you guys because you're not like, this doesn't make any damn sense. From each according to his ability to each according to his need. So basically, instead of to each according to their work, pretty much, he's like, everybody's going to like, you're only like basically you don't even have to work in the communist system to get your needs met. You know what I mean? And it's not to say that Nyerere is not saying, hey, if you're unable, if you're disabled, Benjamin says, you as an Orville. I know I didn't say it last time. I was like, yeah, Star Trek. I watched that thing. It was interesting. Anyway, but it's sci-fi, you know what I mean? But anyway, what's his name is a dork, Seth MacFarlane, and you're just like, I didn't even know this. This guy, Seth MacFarlane, for those of you who don't know, he was actually a part of, he had some sort of role, like writing role or directorial role in this cartoon when we were younger called Johnny Bravo. Like, this guy has been around, you know what I mean? He was essentially considered the golden boy in American media for a long time. So, just seeing him, it's pretty interesting. Anyway, what was I saying, though? Embarrassing myself. What were we talking about? This, yeah, the communist thing. It's like you don't have to work. You don't have to work. Actually, let me see if I might as well let me just freaking read this first paragraph. I don't know what it says, but let me just read it just for you guys. It says, it's a slogan popularized by Karl Marx in his critique of the Gotha program. The principle refers to free access to and distribution of goods, capitals, and services. In the Marxist view, such an arrangement would be made possible by the abundance of goods and services that a developed communist system will be able to produce. Again, if you have an abundance of goods and services, but you don't, in Tanzania. So if you come to them and say, hey, why is your system not like the system where everything is free? Where everything is free because there's an abundance, it's because you don't have the abundance. And again, the theory comes about because in capitalism, they produce an abundance. But if you're talking about agrarian societies, they do not produce an abundance. And that's why they do not be Marxist, right? Will be available to produce. The idea is that with the full development of socialism and unfettered productive costs, there'll be enough to satisfy everyone's needs. See what I'm saying? And Nyerere is like, shut the fuck up and stop telling me that I'm not a socialist, because we do not have enough to meet everyone's needs. That's sci-fi. It's science fiction that you're just going to go along with some ideas and be able to satisfy everybody's needs. The reason why Marxism works for Marx, or what he was talking about, was that you were living in societies that overproduce, that produce an abundance of goods. And he's like, if we just took over the people who control this, the bourgeoisie, then we can then, as a community or as a people, use those abundance of goods for ourselves. You can't implement that in Russia. You can't implement that in China. You can't implement that in Tanzania. So when somebody like Walter Rodney goes to Tanzania and says, why isn't everything freely available? And blah, blah, blah. No disrespect to Walter Rodney, although I never read his books. But why isn't everything available? It's like, because you're missing the whole point. Marxism, communism develops from capitalism, from the overthrow of a bourgeoisie who already have abundance of goods. If they do not, but what the Soviet Union started off at, what China started off at, what Tanzania started off at, was not capitalism. And again, Marxism is really focusing on changing a highly developed capitalist economy into a socialist communist economy. It doesn't make sense to call yourself a socialist, because it's basically saying science fiction, because this thing never happens. He predicts a revolution in 1870 something. And it's 2022 already. And he said this revolution is coming. And you're still going along with it. And you think because they did something in Russia, or they did something in Cuba, or they did something, that you think that his revolution was proven as a success. It wasn't. He just kind of inspired people to say, you know what, let's be more equal, let's be more and so forth. Maybe more egalitarian, more and so on and so forth. But what he was talking about has nothing to do with any of these people. So I just wouldn't use their word, you know? Maybe be like Revolutionary Matron and say communalism, you know, or something. But like, no, don't, because you're essentially, you're going to Nyerere, you're going to a great African leader and saying, why aren't you like the sci-fi? Why aren't you like Orville? Like, because, you know, Koku gonna make fun of me for the Orville, but in the Orville, they say, you know, we as humans, like, we have a incomeless society, like nobody gets any pay, and they sometimes meet other communities that, you know, are dealing in, like, are earlier in their civilization. I know, right? Coco says, you know, everything's political, even TV shows, right? Yeah, exactly, right? But at some point they're like, and that show's actually pretty political. I'm not gonna hold you. So then somebody comes from another society. I think it might have been the last episode, honestly. Somebody comes from another society and they're like, if we had your technology, we could save all our people from starving and hunger. And it's like, no, if you don't have the mindset, you're probably not ready. That was the concept behind what the guy's pushing. He's like a whole liberal, right? But the thing is that, yeah, if you have a replicator and the technology and like food costs nothing, then sure, you can distribute it unlimited. If you have an abundance of resources or an abundance of goods and services, sure, you can do the socialism. But if you don't have the abundance of goods and services, you like you can't do it like what Marx is saying, where everything is freely available. You can't do that, you know? And so, like, judging him by that is just like, well, he was not realistic anyway. I'm sorry, I'm taking up way too much fucking time. Sorry, by the way. Part of me is just being freaking hungry. Let me see. Am I in the book? Yeah. All right. So, but the number of people involved at this level is very small indeed. Probably not more than 35,000 individuals get enough income to be liable to pay income tax, much less surtax. Right. You see what I'm saying? He says, but the number involved in this rate level is very small indeed. Probably not more than 35,000 individuals get enough income to be liable to pay income tax. So basically he's saying that most people are not even taxed in Tanzania, much less surtax. The real problem in Tanzania is not redistribution between the rich and the poor, but a fair distribution of wealth and a contribution of national expenses between the very poor and the poor, between the man who can barely feed himself and the man who can barely clothe himself. Even so, considerable improvements have been made for that group of our workers whose incomes can be fairly easily influenced by government and by their own direct action, which is the wage earners. The cost of employing a worker in Tanzania has more than doubled during the 6 years since 1961. Cash wages have increased considerably in most cases, and fringe benefits like leave, severance, pay, employers' contribution to the Provident Fund, and so on have all increased the real security and income of the wage earners. So again, the wage earners, right? The incomes of the peasants, however, are not so susceptible to government action. By encouraging the cooperative movement, we have tried to avoid the exploitation of the peasants by middlemen. We are now engaged in trying to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the cooperative movement so as to ensure that one type of exploitation does not get replaced by another. The exploitation of inefficiency and bureaucracy, yet for the most part, the peasant's income in this country is determined by his own hard work, combined with the effect of the weather and the world prices of the crop he sells. Government can and does help the peasant by teaching new methods of planting, by making better seeds available, and within our resources by providing Reddit, with which he can buy better tools or fertilizers, etc. But neither government nor peasant can control the weather, nor can either of us control the prices which our export receive in the world market, right? So there you go, right? Sorry, I kind of skipped over that. I'm like low-key thinking about what bitter medicine got against Orville. Anyway, I was thinking about how freaking liberal and whack it is, but I was thinking to myself, like, also, like, you know, every freaking Netflix, it's not Netflix, but every single Netflix show got you some queers, and I'm like, does the show got queers? And it's like, yeah, they got alien queers, you know what I mean? Their queers are alien. But yeah, he's like, you can't control the peasant's income, only determined by hard work, and of course what crops he sells, but that's depending on the world prices, you know. And again, you can build the wealth, but it's just difficult. So he says, it is true that some of the crops produced by our peasants are consumed within Tanzania, and that for many of these, the government fixes the price. This does not mean, however, that the government can increase the wealth of our people by increasing the price of the food crops. If, for example, we set a higher price for maize, what would be the effect? The result would be that the wage earners who now buy the maize would have to pay more out of their existing income in order to earn the same amount. Their real income would thus have gone down. In other words, by increasing the incomes of the farmers, we would be decreasing the incomes of the wage earners. The wage earners would then naturally demand an increase in their wages on the grounds that the cost of living has gone up. If that demand were granted, the effect would be to increase the cost of the things the wage earners produced, things like shirts, shoes, and so on, which the peasant buys. So in the end, neither the peasant nor the wage earner would be better off. Both would have more money, but neither would have more goods than he had before. Like, look how smart this is. Like, you don't even know. Like, I'm telling you, man, this motherfucker, although Adam Smith was popular in his time, and he's popular today, whatever. But this motherfucking Adam Smith writes the same shit in his book, kind of, right? But it's like 1,000 pages. Like, nobody's freaking reading it now. Like, maybe once upon a time, sure. Nobody's reading it now. This guy right here is speaking before 1 million people. And it's like, Adam Smith is like a scholar for Europeans. And, you know, among Europeans, he's not a world leader. This is a world leader speaking to his constituency and giving them the breakdown of, like, a really advanced breakdown, so simply put. Like, I think it was EL said. Was that the EL or Bobby Wright? But they said that, you know, the guy puts it simple. But, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, he does it. He just does it. And it's good, you know? So there's no way of improving our incomes unless we improve our output. This can be seen very easily in the case of the peasant because he works on his own land and owns the crops which he grows. He may complain about the price he receives just as he complains about the weather, but he can always see the connection between his output and his income. Whatever the price, if he succeeds in growing 12 bags of maize on an acre, he'll be richer than if he only grows 4 bags of maize on that acre. Anything which the government can do to contribute to the better yield on his land is a contribution to his income. Provided that he does the necessary work himself. For the wage earner, the same basic principles apply. Output and income are connected. If the worker's income goes up while the value of his output does not go up, or if his income remains the same while the total value of his output goes down, he will then soon begin to get into difficulties. Let us take a simple case of 100 shirt makers in a factory who produce between them. Let us say 2,000 shirts a month. That is 20 for each worker. Let us further assume that each of these workers receives 200 shillings a month. On the basis, the cost of producing each shirt will be 10 shillings. In order to keep this example simple, I'm leaving aside all questions of rent for the factory, cost of the machines, transport, and so forth. At that point, price, all the shirts which are produced are bought by the consumers of Tanzania. Now, again, that's the issue, though. You don't want to take out the rent for factory, cost of machines, transport, because those are the things that the bourgeoisie or the leaders, the managers have to handle, and that's why they also get a pay. You know what I mean? Because like if you bought the machine, it's different. Like you'd want to get your money back. Let us now see what happens if the wage of each worker in the shirt is increased to 300 shillings a month without them increasing the number of shirts they produce. Each shirt would then cost 15 shillings, but the consumer only has sufficient money to spend 20,000 shillings on buying shirts. Therefore, instead of 2,000 shirts being sold each month, only 1,300 will be sold each month. But then that means that 67 workers are needed to produce the number of shirts which can be sold. The other 33 will be dismissed because no one can buy the goods they produce. The total effect of the increase in wages has therefore been that 67 people are better off. Their income have increased from 200 shillings a month each to 300 shillings a month each. But 33 workers who used to receive 200 shillings a month each now receive nothing. In addition, the consumers of Tanzania only have 1,300 new markets every month, new shirts every month, instead of having 2,000 new shirts every month. And so you see, I said that accidentally, markets, because that's what market economy is. Market economics. How are you going to determine the price? How do you get it? And like the question becomes, how do you make it the best for the consumer? You know. And I mean, actually, I'll admit this. Like I'll admit that's like the consumer focus. Honestly, is also what that guy Adam Smith was trying to promote, which is interesting. Like it's interesting, and it's like probably something I would promote. I wouldn't say it's Adam Smith. I mean, I'll say it to you guys, but like if I'm writing a book, I'm not gonna be like, oh, you know, I'll just tell you guys, yeah, consumer focus, because it's not limited or restricted to one individual. And again, like you see, Nyerere is saying the same thing. You know what I mean? Like focus on what the consumer gets most. You know, and the thing that he's saying it in. Like he's saying it, I'm so impressed. I'm not even, like he's saying it at a conference. It's like, this is advanced economics, right? This is advanced economics. And he's just spelling it out so simply to the point where like, I'm reading this, I'm like wading through this 800 page, no, this, what is it, 1,200 page book? I'm wading through this 1,200 page book. And this guy wrote the same book in, I would say 150 pages. It looks like 150 pages. All right, I think. By the way, I don't know if you guys peeped it, but like when I say 1,300 instead of 1,333, that's the astrophysicist in me. Like we like legit, like the astrophysicists or whatever. They do not like, they just round numbers because it's like, what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? They just round numbers because what's the point? Like you can't be too specific in like you can't be too accurate in astrophysics. So you just round it. You're like, oh, that's just a million. You know. That's just 1,000,000 kilometers. You know what I mean? Like it's not like you're not 1,343,000. You know, like it doesn't, like you don't know. This is of course a very simplified example, but it's not a false one. Indeed, something like this has been happening in Tanzania since 1961. Altogether, wages have risen by something like 80%, while the productivity of the wage earner as a group has increased by very much less than this. As a result, 93,000 less people are now employed for wages than they were employed for wages in 1961. Many of these people lost their jobs because it became less expensive for the employer to buy a machine than to spend money every month on the increased wages of the number of workers necessary to do the same job by hand. This means that in order to keep prices down, some employers sacked workers and bought a machine to do the same job. In many cases, there was no alternative if they were to remain in business. In other cases, for example, in domestic employment, the employer did more work themselves, or they simply contracted their activity because their higher wages made it uneconomic. The sisal industry gives many examples of this. In 1961, 128,000, see what I'm saying? No, 928 people who were employed in the sisal industry. In 1966, the figure had fallen to 64,593, and now it is even lower. Basically, he's saying, you know, yeah, like sometimes if you know to remain in business, you can't afford workers, you know, because you got to realize like if I were to go to Africa, like if I'm trying to do a business in America, right, I have to, and I want people, Americans, like black Americans to work for me, right? This is what happened this is actually what happened to, this is what Dr. King was trying to fight against while he was talking about integration. He was like, a lot of black Americans, because he was, you know, he was in America. He's like, a lot of us do not have skills, like we're not participating in skilled labor, and if unskilled labor is no longer going to be around, then we're in trouble. And it's the same thing that Marx is talking about. Okay, Marx is saying the same thing. If unskilled laborers is being replaced by machines, then the proletariat are in trouble. And it's the same with the John Henry story. So John Henry is this famous African American story, and it's really about how this Superman is competing against because basically in order to make railways, you can just go use manpower, or you can have a machine to do it. And the whole story of John Henry is that the machines are replacing us because even an exceptional human being, right, like John Henry, will die trying to compete with machines. Like, he could probably beat a machine, but he will die. If you can do better than a machine, you will die. You know what I mean? like I was saying, like I one time, I could have done like a bit of the human calculator stuff, but like straight up doing the math, right? Not like like some sort of whatever, but realistically, if I couldn't do it as long as a calculator could. You know what I mean? So like yeah, but like. Yeah, I would die in the process if I did that. You know what I mean? Like the calculator could just outdo you. And like realistically, like if you're talking about like a computer's gonna freaking outpace you. If you as a human being could outpace a computer, especially these computers now, like your brain will just fry. You know what I mean? Because they're just too damn fast. You know what I mean? The connection between wage increases without your brain would catch on fire. Like the neurons and the electricity flying in your head. Like if it went as fast as a computer would, like your brain would catch on fire, I mean, obviously it can't, but still. Actually, my son, I gotta, wait, hold on a second. All right. Connection between wage increases without corresponding increases in productivity on the other hand, and the amount of employment available on the other is very obvious from the statistics. Thus, for example, in 1963, when the overall wage levels increased most drastically, the number of people in employment dropped by more than any other year. In 1964, when wages rose slightly, probably by about the same amount as productivity increased, the number of people in employment actually increased. Let me put this in figures. Average wages rose by 28% in 1963. Employment fell by 14%. In 1964, on the other hand, average wages rose by about 3%, while the number of people in employment also increased by 3%. Obviously, the 1964 experience is more in keeping with our ambition to expand the economy and nearer to the target of the development plan, which is for 6% per annum increase in employment, right? So average wages rose by this, employment fell by 14%. Average wages rose by 3%, number of people... and the number of employment also increased by 3%. Obviously, the 1964. So you want employment to go up as well as wages, and that's better than wages going up but employment falling. And that's the balance that you have to handle in real life. Instead of your imaginary, how are we gonna get everything free? Like, shut the fuck up. Like, just shut up. Just shut up. I'll tell you, if I man, I tell you, man, oh boy, if I were an African leader, man, you ain't going. These motherfuckers are not gonna see the light of day. Cause you come to me with that, why don't we do this? Like, shut the fuck up, man. You getting like, nah, like shit. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I ain't never been mad at no butcher. I'm sorry. Anyway, sometimes I said that the increase. I'm just messing around. All right, I'll tell you, I'm gonna get my ass butchered in Africa. My thing is that before I went to Africa, I was like, I'm gonna go there with a cane and like start knocking people out because I'm like, how the fuck is your country not tip top? But then, like I said, you go there and you're like, okay, I see it. I see what's going on. I can probably help. You know what I mean? So just want to go and help. Sometimes it's said that the increased wages should be paid out of profits, and that if this is done, prices will not have to go up, and nor will the peasants be any worse off, only the rich employers. Unfortunately, as I have already indicated, this is not true in Tanzania. It may be true in some other countries, but this is not our concern. The people of Tanzania, though their government, their local government, their cooperatives, or through the publicly owned industries, are now the biggest employers of wage earners in the United Republic. So he's like, look, the biggest wage earners are not the bourgeoisie. It's the government. It's the cooperatives. It's the local government, right? Publicly owned industries. So so we don't have the bourgeoisie like that. And so again, he's talking about the Walter Rodneys who are like, hey, you do blah blah blah, and it's like, no, you can't cut the profit. He's like, any profits made by publicly owned or controlled industries come back to the people and are spent for our national development and our national welfare. This is what I was telling to Sister Lero. So I don't know why Lero's not here, but Sister Lero was like, what is benevolent? Like, what is I think I said moral capitalism or something like that, or ethical capitalism. And it's like, yeah, if you have publicly owned industries and controlled industries that are putting their profits into the national welfare of the people, you want that. And cutting back the profits, right, for some reason, when these are the people that are going to develop the infrastructure, is going to screw you over. You know? It's a complicated thing. It's like life is complicated. You can't go by what somebody wrote in 1867. You know, just like when I'm reading this to Adam Smith, I'm not like, oh well, let's all do this shit. Because I look at it, I'm like, yeah, we're not gonna do this shit. You know, but it's still helpful. But it's not, you know, like I'm not. Oh, you're not doing capitalism right. You know, I want to do that shit. All right. So that was the point of the nationalization exercise in February, and it would certainly be very unfair if the few people who happen to be lucky enough to get jobs in a place like Williamson Diamond Mines, which is 50% publicly owned, were to have all the profits of that place paid out to them in wages. These profits must be shared amongst all, and in fact, more than 3/4 of the profits of this industry now come to the government or to other national institutions. So again, that's another thing right there. He says the few people who are lucky enough to get jobs at this diamond mine, right? If they get all the profits, if you say give the wage earners all the profits of what they're working at, which is also a concept in the socialist canon, right? Right? What happens is that if you're not lucky enough to work there, you're not going to be making a lot of money. And so this is another question that realistically we have to handle. And so what he's saying is that their solution, which is not the socialist solution, but their solution was let the government own 50% of it, okay? And then 3/4 of that profit is going to go to the government. And now the government can pay for the services for everybody, you know, as opposed to just the wage earners earning all that money and not really paying for any services, right? It says, indeed, the truth is that employees in Williamson's and places like it are already a privileged group of wage earners receiving very much above the average rates for the kind of work they are already doing. We even had the ludicrous position recently where the government had to decide what to do about a group of people who had been paid by Williamson's while they were on a special course and who are now pointing out that by paying them only the wage we have been paying to expatriate workers in another branch of the diamond industry, they'll be receiving less income for doing the job that they had received while being trained for it. So they're like, they were getting paid for more for training than for working, right? You know what I'm saying? So wage earners obtain their living by being part of a very complex economic organization. They cannot be expected to understand by instinct the very real connection between their output, their wages, and their continued employment. It is our job, that is the job of TANU and NUTA leaders, to understand these things and to explain them. It is our job to show the workers and peasants that there is only one way in which we can increase the amount of wealth available to us. That is by increasing the amount we produce. Out of that increase, we can then have a little more to spend on ourselves and our immediate needs. Whether these be new schools and hospitals or more wages for every individual and the rest of the increased wealth we have created by our efforts we can devote to investment so that it will be easier for us to increase production still more in future years. But we cannot increase wages or other incomes first and hope that increased production will follow. A farmer cannot eat his maize before he has cleared the ground, planted, weeded, and waited for the time when he harvests the crops. None of this means that we have done all there is to do I'm really distracted. I'm sorry. None of this really means that we have done all this to do in the ways of equalizing the incomes of our country. But we must equalize incomes as we make our total wealth grow. It is growth which we must concentrate on. We must then reduce inequalities in incomes by constantly maintaining and bringing up to date our system of progressive taxation. We must do it by the provision of social services which are available to all, regardless of income. For a man who suddenly has new medical services available to him and his family, or a new house, or a new school, or a community center, has had an improvement in his standard of living just as much as if he had more money in his pocket. And we must also concentrate the wage earners' incomes which increased productivity makes possible onto the lowest paid workers in our society. Again, this is liberals. This is liberalism. Right? But I wouldn't critique it because this is exactly what you want. You want people to increase their standard of living. And it's the realistic way. The other way of everything's going to be free, everything's going to be freely distributed, it doesn't really make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. But it would be quite wrong for us to aim at complete equality of income between all workers. Incomes must depend upon work and output too. There must be an incentive for everyone to work a little harder. The central point about our wage policy must be that while it prevents gross inequalities, it creates a direct link between productivity and income. Whatever appropriate piece rates should be employed, or bonuses paid for increased output, and where there is not possible, for example, in jobs like teaching or nursing, we should take into account the social usefulness of the work and its relative attractiveness in comparison with other opportunities for earning a living, including farming. This means that there is an important constructive task for Nuta and for Tanu. We must recognize that the way to increase our members' standard of living is to help them to become more productive at whatever job they are doing. Our trade union movement must shake off its British heritage, where it found its justification for experience by quarreling with the employers. The largest employer in Tanzania now is the people. You see what I'm saying? Our trade union movement, so this is the socialist kind of thing, must shake off its British heritage, okay? The Marxist heritage, right? Where it found its justification for existing by quarreling with the employers. Basically, the trade union is like, all we're supposed to do is, the employer is bad. They're paying us too little, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's your British heritage. Makes a lot of sense, but it made sense before we were our own employers. The largest employer in Tanzania now is the people, their government and their public institutions. So stop doing that shit. So he says, Nuta must learn something from the Soviet trade unions or the Swedish ones. Both of these, in their different ways, are chiefly concerned with ensuring that the wage earners get a fair share of an increased value of output. Thus, they first work to encourage and to help improve productivity, and then argue about its fair distribution. This is, of course, a more difficult task than just making demands for wage increases. But it is a task which is a real service to the members of the trade union movement and to the people as a whole. Nor should this task be left only to Nuta. Tanu leaders also have a responsibility for wage earners, as well as peasants and other members of our political movement. Basically, what he's saying is that you have to focus on increasing your productivity if you want to have more money. You know what I mean? If you want to have higher wages. So you can see that's not what happens inside of America or whatever, right? Or like he's saying in England. It's more like just increase our wages. We don't care if we don't, so on and so forth. You're making too much profit. Jeff Bezos is too damn rich, so we want to have more money. And it's not like, oh, let's produce more. It's just Jeff Bezos is too damn rich. Revolutionary Matrix says we are supposed to use profits to build an infrastructure for at least 2 generations, and then can institute profit sharing, fund pensions, speculation in new markets, and foreign investments. Exactly. Like you have to, like, you can't go by what other people are. Like, you have to live it. You have to be there. You have to do it. I'm trying to finish this because, obviously if my son woke up and he's probably hungry, probably hungrier than me, although he eats more than I do, but because I'm like starving to lose weight, but I'm not going to starve him. But anyway, I have spent a long time on this matter because it is important that we should all understand these basic economic facts of Tanzania. We are now a poor nation. There is no shortcut to prosperity. Hard work and a deliberate decision by us to plan for a better future is the only way forward. Once we accept these things, then we can work and plan to make sure that our progress takes us in the right direction. We can then ensure that increasing prosperity is used for the benefit of the people as a whole, and not concentrated in the hands of a few. We can ensure that we can build a society in which men cooperate together for the mutual benefit, and we can nurture the traditional values of Africa, the belief that a man as a member of his community must enjoy respect and well-being alongside his fellows and in proportion to the contribution to the society of which he is a member. For the vast majority of our people, the community will continue to be a rural one, and the means of livelihood will be agriculture. This means that our agriculture must be organized in such a manner that improved conditions become possible for all who are willing to work, and that our rural life must be based on the principles of socialism, that is, on the principles of equality, cooperation, and democracy. By the way, I plan on sharing this video to a friend of mine. So if you guys are sharing these videos with your friends, I appreciate it. But people especially that might like socialism or might not even know about socialism. I think this whole video series is actually pretty good expose on socialism. Based off the commentary and the reading. So, and just also expose on excellent African leadership. So for those of you who want to, if you know somebody who might be interested in economics in Africa and all that kind of stuff, definitely there's a whole playlist. You can see the playlist of this reading Nyerere, Ujamaa's. Like, check it out. And by the way, tomorrow is the last chapter, and then I'll stop reading every day. You know what I mean? I think because the next book I need to read obviously is This Wealth of Nations. So I'm not going to read that for you guys. You know what I mean? But because I'm like midway through it, or like 70% through it. And I might just I just won't read it. All right. But anyway, all right. In traditional African life, the people were equal, they cooperated together, and they participated in all the decisions which affected their lives. But the equality was an equality of poverty. The cooperation was on small things, and their government was only the government of their own family unit, and of their clan, or of their tribe. Our task, therefore, is to modernize the traditional structure so as to make it meet our new aspirations for a higher standard of living. Now, again, whether it can be modernized is another question. This can be done provided we hold fast to the basic principles of traditional living while we adapt these techniques to those of the 20th century. And the way to do this is to create all over Tanzania economic and social communities where people live together and work together for the good of all and with interlocked so that all of the different communities also work together in cooperation for the community good of the nation as a whole. And he does this, okay? This is the objective outlined in the policy paper, Socialism and Rural Development, to which I direct the attention of the conference. This paper is the application of the Arusha Declaration to the practical needs of our rural life. It is vital that it is clearly understood and that we should all work for its implementation. For socialism and rural development is an outline of socialism and self-reliance as it applies to Tanzania's rural life and rural people, and that means it applies to 95% of our population. So 95% of them are rural. You know what I mean? And again, what Marx was about was when the population was like 80% urban, you know? And this is a 95% rural, and you're just like, you're not really socialist. Like, yeah, we're not 80% rural. Like, we're not 80% urban either. You know what I mean? Like it's good for the urban, for the urbanized. But anyway, in our countryside, there will be a national projects. There'll be national projects, state farms, state forests, national parks, and so on. But they'll not be the dominating type of organization for the rural areas. They'll be created and run to cater for special problems and special needs. The way the majority of our people will live and work in a socialist Tanzania will be in villages which they themselves create and govern, and which are the basis for the productive activities of the members. By the way, I do hope that someday my son could listen to these. Anyway, let us put this objective in its simplest terms. A group of families will live together in a village. And will work together on a common farm for their common benefit. Their houses, I'm just emphasizing to my sons here, will be the ones they build for themselves out of their own resources. Their farms will be owned jointly, and its produce will be their joint property. The activity of the village and the type of production they undertake, as well as the distribution of crops and other goods they produce, will all be determined by the village members themselves. For the land will be our land to all the members of the village, and the crops will be our crops. The common herd of animals will be our herd. In other words, we shall have an up-to-date and larger version of the traditional African family, where the land was ours, crops were ours, and so on. The size and composition of the group of people who live together will vary from one part of the country to another, depending upon the soil, the appropriate crops, or animal husbandry, and the social customs of the people. But by living together and working together, all of them will be able to be better off. Instead of 40 different families, each living separately and each farming their own land, collecting their own water, and sending their children miles to school, they will come together and live in a village. Then by their joint effort, they will in time be able to bring water into the village. They'll be able to build their children's schools conveniently near all of them. They'll be able to build a community center and a store for the mutual convenience, and so on. And that's the thing. You could do this. You can make a community. I keep telling you guys about community centers. Community centers are really like a key. You know what? One of the things, the reason why I give Garvey so much, like Garvey was so successful, I believe, is because he made those Liberty Halls, which are community centers. He made Liberty Hall, and like you want to make community centers. Even if you're in America, you want to make a community center. Also, by working together on one farm, they will soon be able to, like, if you want community, because like I feel like you can't have a community without a center. You can't have any shape without a center. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, also by working together on one farm, they will soon be able to invest in an oxen plow to do more of the work each had previously do his own hoe and panga. They'll be able to take full advantage of the skilled advice about modern methods. They'll be able to increase their joint production and their joint prosperity. They'll be able to jointly to arrange the sale of their produce and the purchase of the goods they want to buy from outside, perhaps by running their own Ujamaa shop, and so on. In other words, a living and working community will have been created. All members of the community will be equal in status, and any variations of income will reflect only differences in the amount of work done. They will be working in cooperation and not in opposition to each other, and they will be governing their own village affairs, as well as being able to discuss together national issues which affect them as citizens of Tanzania. And I want to say this, there is video of these Ujamaa villages, so make sure you guys look up Nyerere and look up, like, because you get to see it. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. This is the objective. It's stated clearly and at greater length in the policy paper. We must understand it so that we know what we are working towards, but it is not something we shall achieve overnight. We have a long way to go. For what has been happening over recent years is quite different. We have been enlarging and modernizing our traditional family units as much as abandoning it in favor of small-scale capitalist farming. Many of our most dynamic and energetic farmers, especially those with the most initiative and willingness to learn new techniques, have been branching out of their own as individuals. They have not been enlarging their farms by joining with others in the spirit of equality, but by employing labor. So we are getting the beginnings of the development of an agricultural laboring class on the one hand and a wealthier employing class on the other. So again, he's against employing labor, which is not something I would agree with. Fortunately, this development has not gone very far. We can arrest this trend without difficulty, but we must not make this change by persecuting the progressive farmers. After all, we have been encouraging them in the direction they have been going. Instead, we must seek their cooperation and integrate them into the new socialist agriculture by showing them that their best interests will be served by this development. For energy and initiatives such as the farmers have displayed with a very important to our progress, we need these people. So, like I think it's Bobby Wright who said that Nyerere's successor reversed all of his policies. But like, what if his policy was like when we say he reversed his policies, like what if it was this policy? Because like I would say this: if I followed Nyerere, I would be like, no, we can have people like what labor, like you can hire labor. You know what I mean? I would say that. Now that's completely against his socialist paradigm. It's completely against his thing. But would you then say that I'm reversing him, his decisions, and then would you also say because of that means that Westerners are controlling the economy, you know, or that we don't control our own economy, or is it the fact that realistically people don't agree with this because it's like literally it's like an imaginary thing, you know what I mean? And the thing is that what happens with Nyerere is that he admits that this system that he's describing failed in Tanzania, and it was a fault because he's like he says that the government should have. I feel like I should just bring up the quote. I keep forgetting to bring up the quote. So anyway, he says, how then do we move from our present system to the system of Ujamaa villages? The policy paper outlines some of the steps which may be used in different places, but it's important to remember two things. First, that the appropriate first steps will be different in different places. And second, that the people themselves must decide whether and when they are prepared to make this movement. For we are not simply trying to organize increased production. We are trying to introduce a new way of life for the majority of our people. This can only be done once the people participate understand its purposes and voluntarily decide to participate. We must not try to rush this development. What matters is not the speed, but the direction in which we move. Must encourage and help people, not to try to force them. For this kind of village does exist in Tanzania, and the members of them are learning their advantages. But sometimes people have tried to start this kind of thing and have failed. The reason is often their expectations were too great. They had too much enthusiasm and too much impatience. What is needed is careful thought and planning by the people themselves. This is why it is better to start slowly, perhaps by working a common plot in addition to private ones, perhaps by undertaking mutual help. Then as the problem reveals themselves, they are solved by the participants so they will gain confidence and take the next step. But slowly does not mean without determination. The initiative for movements in the direction of Ujamaa villages can be taken by anyone who understands the objective. It does not have to be a Tanu leader or a government official. Anyone can get together with a group of friends and decide to start. For these villages must, and see what I'm saying? Get together with a group of friends. Decide to start your village. For these villages must govern themselves. The participants must control their own activities. No one else can do it for them. Thus, a group of young people may decide to start, or the members of a Tanu cell, or the members of a church or a mosque, or the school teacher in a village school can take the initiative by asking children's parents to work with the school in a common project, and so on. The job of Tanu leaders is to help and to encourage this will not always be easy. Sometimes people will be skeptical or they will reject the advice and make mistakes. But if the Tanu leaders are themselves participants in such schemes, are able to demonstrate by example the benefits of and the best methods are for the kind of activity, then success will be greater. It's like with us, like we're talking how to build Africa. It's like demonstrate it. We have to act ourselves, and then others will follow. If every MP or other delegate, and we're finally coming to the conclusion, right, from a rural area decides to be a member of the Ujamaa village, we shall make a good start. Indeed, no one who can live in a Ujamaa village but does not should talk about Ujamaa. See what I'm saying? No one who can live in a Ujamaa village but does not should talk about Ujamaa. The same as that. It's like no one who can live in Africa but does not should talk about it. I'm not gonna say it that way, but it's kind of like that's why I don't mind ADOS and FBA. Like I said, they're like, why aren't you in Africa then? You know, and it's like that's true. Now me, I mean, one of the reasons, I mean, obviously I don't have citizenship in Africa. Another one is that my son, I just can't up and take my son. If you up and take your son, you will be considered a kidnapping. You know, if the mother doesn't approve, and you know the mother is whatever, right? But like, yeah, if you have that kind of liberty, freedom, and obviously, like, look, I'll be honest with you. A lot of people can't afford to live in Africa because if it's poor there, if there's not much money to make there, you're probably not going to be able to survive, because one, you're not a citizen, and two, it's poor there. So you have to find the ways. You have to get your income. You got to get your money up. You got to get your wealth up. Then when you have your wealth up and you have your passive income up, and you could still do your passive income from abroad, then that's a thing. Like I said, for me, it'd be nice if I could sell books. Like I'm probably going to do a fiction series at one point. If I could sell books, and those books, the earnings from those books give me money. You know what I mean? So that if I'm in Africa and I'm like acting a fool and whatever, like I could just check my account and I could still get money. Because at the end of the day, I'll still be a freaking citizen of America. You know what I mean? Until I could lose it. But, some countries in Africa, it's like it'll take you like 5 years or 4 years or 10 years. You know what I mean? And it depends on where you go. So I'm just giving you guys that. Just spitting some bars while we can. Because we're about to end. Although it's kind of long, right? One other important point for national leaders to remember is that there can be no great promise of government help, nor of immediate prosperity. If such villages are started, it is safer to assume that the government will be able to give no help at all than to assume that the government will come in and with all the advice or capital which could be possible required. Basically, you're not getting, and of course there's no reparations here, but like basically the same, like shut up about the government helping you, because it's not going to. The American government doesn't plan on helping you because the American government is the one hurting you. You know what I mean? Or it's not going to help you any more than it helps you already. You know what I mean? It's not going to make some exception to start helping you, per se. And the truth is that at the beginning, life and a Ujamaa village will be just as hard as the life of a farmer working on his own. The system is no substitute for hard work. It just means that the hard work will, in time, bring greater returns. For an Ujamaa village, as outlined in this paper, is both a socialist and a self-reliant community. It will be using local resources and traditional knowledge and working up from these to the simple improvements which are possible when people work together. As the village succeeds, the members will graduate from hoes to ox plows, from carrying everything on their heads to using bicycles or ox carts. They will work out their own system of social security and assistance in times of trouble. They will be self-reliant Ujamaa communities. When the government and the other national industries come in, they will do so to implement the activities of the members and assist them to help themselves. Like the lady I bought the mango from, what was it? Mango? Pineapple. The lady I brought the pineapple from in Ghana, she was going door to door selling pineapple. The pineapple was like on her head. And the only reason why she showed up next to my door was because my neighbor regularly bought pineapple from her. Right? My neighbor told her to like overcharge me because I was like a generous, rich. Well, I was generous as fuck. So like I was just giving out money. Like even when people told me they wanted it for less, I was like, nah, I'm giving you more. So she was like, try to take advantage of the foreigner. But I don't think she did. But even then I was like, I bought my neighbor, the same neighbor who was trying to like get me to pay more. I bought her some pineapple. You know what I mean? Because I was like, I'm just trying to support these sisters. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to support black folk. And that's a spirit you got to go, to Africa with. And like I said, like if a woman in America is like, hey, I want to do luxury, I want to experience luxury and all that kind of shit, it's like, I don't have time for luxury because I'm trying to develop Africa. You know what I mean? Like I'm okay with spending money. I just don't want to spend money on like myself per se. You know what I mean? I don't want to spend money on myself per se. You know what I mean? Like I'll buy another person food, before I buy an expensive ass plate of food for myself. You know what I mean? At least of all to get pom pom. Like, come on. Like let's say like is this. You know what I mean? She's like, I want some crabs. Like shit, I don't got crabs. You know what I'm saying? That's it. That's that. I forgot the double entendre. I forgot the double meaning, so I'm just gonna hold off on that. So if we succeed in starting Ujamaa villages, we shall be able to build up from them to village associations, whereby a number of villages work together for purposes which are too big for any of them separately. And we shall later be able to develop rural industries to diversify and improve life in the rural areas. But all these things, and this is the incrementalization, I don't know, increments that KW's radio was talking about. But all these things depend upon our moving in the right direction and starting at the bottom with the people coming together in a spirit of equality to work for their common betterment. So let's go. This conference has a great deal of serious business before it, but one of the most important things is a consideration of socialism and rural development. This paper should be regarded as an integral part of the Arusha Declaration, and we should therefore give it a great deal of attention here. We have already taken many decisions about the industrial and commercial sector of our economy. We have taken decisions about the responsibilities and qualifications of leadership. Now is the time for us to think deeply and seriously about the way forward for the masses of our people and therefore for us all. I believe that by accepting this paper and by returning home with a determination to work for its implementation, we shall be setting a pattern which will be our pride and our satisfaction in the years to come. So as usual, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you guys, remind you guys that I'm also an author. Actually, let me tell you guys that I'm part of a podcasting network called KWZ Radio. So if you guys have any more comments, just leave them. I'm going to actually look up a passage for my other book. All right.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
All right, fam. If you have any other comments or questions or concerns, now is the time. These are the last moments of this podcast. Let me see. I'm gonna look through my my book just to see if I have. I don't remember if I have the quote from the book about what Nyerere said about his own country. I think I do, but I'm not 100% sure. Which is like my own fault, because I tell you guys that we should reread our this book regularly, and let me see. This might be it right here. Yeah, okay, here. So this is it. So we're going to actually do something. So again, some of you, I'm talking about my book all the time, and I never even show it. But this is page 46. So on page 46, you have Julius Nyerere say, "Why Ujamaa?" Right? And so I'm going to just do, before he goes into his speech on Ujamaa, and I think he says, forcing people to live in Ujamaa villages was necessary. This is the kind of planning. This is planning. Governments do planning. They say, so he's I think this is like him in an interview, and I just kind of made it, I cut out the white boy. But so here it goes. It says, Baba wasn't perfect. It's difficult to be without Boko and Setnakiru. By his own admission, he never should have abolished local governments or disband local agricultural cooperative unions in favor of large state-controlled corporations. So that's what he says. So in his own admission, he says this. So I said, in essence, he admits that he was an ideologue for Eurasianism, notably expressed in Azimio La Arusha, Arusha Declaration. Honestly, I didn't even read it at that point, right? So the following speech, so on and so forth, he's optimistic, but his careful reader can discern the good and all that kind of stuff. So you see, and then, this is his interview. So if you look on YouTube, you could probably see his interview. And a part of the whole reason why I put the, I copied this into the book was because I said, well, what if YouTube takes down the video? He's like, I was hoping the pace of Ujamaa would be faster. It's slower, but I am not particularly worried. We had to do two things in Tanzania. Socialism has to take two stages. Only if you purely negative, stop exploitation, so on and so forth. So it's pretty interesting. Like I said, you guys could go get this book and read it. You guys can go get this book and read it. It's on Amazon. But that's yeah, he says and admits, and it might not be in this particular conversation, but I think it's just a general acknowledgement that he may have had too strong a role, and he knows that, so on and so forth. So then now you have, this idea, his predecessor reversed his policies. It's yeah, well, he thought his policies didn't owe up to like his policies might have been bad. But it is what it is. You do it, you learn, and you just keep it pushing. Not everybody's gonna have perfect policies all the time. But anyway, it seems like there's no comments. So thanks, family, for reading this with me. Appreciate you. Anybody who gets the Book of Power or shares with somebody else to go get the Book of Power, appreciation for you for that too. And of course, definitely try to share this this video. I don't know. Brother Bakari was on yesterday, so make sure you guys check out. Make sure you guys subscribe to everybody that KWZ Radio was outlining for you to subscribe to. And other than that, I think that's it. Shem Hotep, Uncle Jasen Neb Neb. Amen. Ma'at Dua Necher.